kick the field goal. It'll be Jason and Jingel out of the hold of Mesco. Good snap, good hold, and the kick is blocked. Appalachian State has stunned the college football world. One of the greatest upsets in sports history.
Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman.
All right, welcome in. And I am coming directly off the bench. As I've said before, I am relatively familiar with that role, so hopefully I can do it well again. Thom, for those of the praying type, please keep Thom in your thoughts and prayers. He's dealing with a family matter. I don't want to over-speculate and make this sound maybe more intense than it is, but I also don't want to under-speculate. We're not completely aware of the situation. I also don't want to put out any kind of crazy rumors. Marty's fine, but he's dealing with some things within his family that he has to attend to. He might be back tomorrow. Maybe he'll be back Thursday. But nonetheless, until then, we wanted to continue to obviously keep doing the show. As we've said before, we like to keep doing this every single day. So thank you for tuning in. We're going to do our very best and keep things light. But again, if you are the praying type or even the thoughtful type, whichever of those two that you fall under, please keep Thom's family in your thoughts and prayers. So, fellas, we obviously only had what was maybe a few hours to come up with a show script that we felt passionate enough about talking about. So what did we do? We turned it over to the chat. If you're just tuning in, you can see the poll question there on your screen, and you can go ahead and select what type of conversation you would like this show to be centered around. We do still have, I believe, Tracy Jones later in the show. And I'm looking forward to talk to him because if you don't know, tomorrow, which will be March, is, Paul, what was it again? It was National Women's...
Oh, I think it's, first day of Women's History Month tomorrow.
Okay, Women's History Month is tomorrow, and no better person to break down that subject than Tracy Jones, I'm sure, which will be at 11:30. But nonetheless, I, again, appreciate all of you guys coming into the chat, having some fun. I want to get into, fellas, and Reed Mouse, we pulled him in just so we could fill up some airtime as he's wearing that tired Indiana shirt that he wears from time to time.
Go Hoosiers!
And we're going to talk about some NFL draft really quickly. And Trey said, Sirboy wants calls, so I'm sure maybe Casey can cook that up.
Yeah,
and if you guys want to do some calls, we'll do some calls. He's gonna cook that up now, and we'll take some calls today. Why not? I mean, today is one of those situations where you've probably been there at some point in your life where you're just going about your day, and then you realize that something happens, and your day is completely different than what you planned on it. And that's where we all are at this very moment. Having said that, I was looking through some mock drafts right before the show, and I seen some things that are just out and above beyond crazy to me. At what point and when did Anthony Richardson become an elite-level quarterback? I've watched this guy play in the SEC for a few years now, and yes, he's got the build. Yes, he's got the arm talent. But from time to time, I've watched him play quarterback. Not one time did I ever think in my right mind, man, this guy would be a really good NFL quarterback if he was surrounded with the right types of guys and players. He played for the University of Florida. It's not like this guy plays for Kentucky, which, to be frank, you could argue those two programs are relatively at the same level, and for that, I might say I agree with you. However, there's just something to the idea that Anthony Richardson is, again, maybe I'm falling on a sword here, but he reminds me a little bit of Jamarcus Russell, right? Both out of the SEC, both big, strong, burly guys that can throw the ball a country mile, but have never really proven themselves to be the reason that their team wins games that they shouldn't. If you're at the University of Florida and you have a top 10 NFL quarterback, you would be a little bit better than what they were this year. I don't care what anyone says. But here we are. Every single year in the NFL draft, we have these general managers who reach for quarterbacks, and we see it time and time again. The biggest thing that everyone thinks a bit around here, that you guys will laugh at it when I say it, and I'm sure we'll get some people in the chat that just call me a hater, is I genuinely think that if the Bears are an organization that wants to be against the grain and do winning things, I genuinely think they have a beautiful opportunity to trade Justin Fields while, one, his stock is still high, and two, they're in a draft capital position, which is the best you'll ever get, obviously, when you pick one. And you can get C.J. Stroud and or Bryce Young. Now, yesterday I had some fun in the comments. I knew I was going to rile up the folks and say C.J. Stroud's going to be a bust. I think C.J. Stroud is the first Ohio State quarterback that I've seen that I actually think could have a very good NFL career. And it's largely based around the idea of what he did in that Georgia game. And that was the first time when I thought that he showed moxie. I thought that when he got a little bit of pushback, he decided to answer the bell, as they say. If he didn't play well in the Georgia game, for my money, he would have been just like every other run-of-the-mill quarterback at Ohio State. And my thing is a credit to the program Ohio State. People think that I'm hating on Ohio State when I say this. When you play quarterback at Ohio State, you are given every advantage in the world against your opponent. You have more times than not a lot of time to throw the ball. And then, newsflash, I don't know if you see what Brian Hartline's been doing over the last 5 years at Ohio State, but they have literally the best wide receivers that the country has every single year. You're throwing to guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith and Jigma. It's not hard to hit guys when they're wide open and they're running across the field on a 5-yard crosser and you hit them and they run forever. Now I know you're going to pull up highlights, but most of those highlights are going to be against teams, quite frankly, that don't have NFL-type talent on the other side of the ball. And that's no disrespect to the Big Ten. But these quarterbacks struggled when they play against the Michigan. And outside of Michigan, maybe you could say Penn State, there's not that many defenses in the Big Ten where you're like, that's a really good defense. So maybe this is like a conspiracy situation where Trace is off his rocker. But if I can get 2 first-round picks, I want to know what your guys' opinion is. Do you think that if you could get 2 first-round picks for Justin Fields and the number 1 pick this year, or the number, what would it be, 4 pick this year, would you take it? You have a call already.
No, I do not have a call yet. I was telling you to look at your phone.
My phone. All right.
But I will go ahead and start first on this. What do I think that they can get for Justin Fields? I think that the highest that they can go, and this is very, very lucky if they do, is 2 first rounds. They just need one team to really fall in love with the draft profile of Justin Fields, to see that he's a excellent runner, that he has enough arm talent there for something. A team that's also cocky, a team that doesn't necessarily need a bunch of positions to fill. So in my mind, if I'm looking at any of the teams that could potentially trade for him, I'm looking at like maybe the Giants. He probably won't trade to an NFC team, but
Danny Dimes?
They don't really want to pay him. And Dable is a quarterback whisperer. If there's anyone that can get him to the next level, wouldn't that be the guy? Wouldn't that make sense? I mean, they've got potentially a bunch of free cap now that they're not having to waste on Danny Dimes. You're not paying Saquon. You get a good receiver. DeAndre Hopkins is pretty cheap right now. The receiver market's a dime a dozen at the current moment. So that would be my thought. That would be my potential place for him. But, again, Bears probably won't do that. They'll probably trade their first round
100%
pick,
that's what they're going to do.
and they'll get players and just try to build around Justin Fields.
Oh, they're building around Justin Fields.
Yeah, and
And that's my point, is I don't believe in that guy at one iota. And that's the problem, is that I don't know why I'm the only one that feels like I see this, but I don't watch him ever, and I think to myself that guy is legit. He's very good. He's a hell of a running back. He's unbelievably athletic. And I know people think that that's a bit, and what I'm saying is a joke. I'm being genuine. He might be the best athlete in the NFL, but athletes don't win Super Bowls. They never have. They never have. There's not been one quarterback in this league where you look at him and you're like, well, the first thing I only talk about and the only thing I really talk about is how well they run the ball. Never. Not one time in the history of this league. And somehow we're supposed to think that that guy is going to lead his team to win a Super Bowl, and I just don't see it. Because, as I said before, and I got laughed at when I sat up on the stage maybe, is that he's going to get hurt again. There's no way he's not. If you think Lamar Jackson is injury prone, I would say, what's the difference between Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields? There's no difference. Seth Pryor brings up a point, and he says you should trade, the Ravens should trade for Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson straight up. The problem is, I don't think the Bears are going to take that trade because they're looking at it the same way that the Ravens are looking at it. Like, well, do we want this guy? I don't know if we want this guy. I mean, I know Lamar has value in this league, but there needs to be at some point when you talk about skill sets of players, whether they have a good arm, whether they're accurate, whether they can kind of be mobile inside of a pocket, at some point you need to bring up what's their availability as a part of the conversation. It doesn't matter how good you are if you can't be on the field, which is half the problem with a lot of these guys that run first, or they look to run as soon as they get in any kind of trouble. And at some point, I think right now the Bears are in a beautiful position to be able to go out and get a legitimate franchise quarterback. Now, they're not going to do that. You know why they're not going to do that? Because that is one of the most ballsy and craziest moves one could make as a general manager. And Ryan Poles, who just came in there, right, he inherited this situation. The last thing he wants to do, just like they do in corporate America all the time, is when you finally get your way, you've been pecking along your whole entire career, and you finally get to the very top, and you're making a good salary. The last thing in corporate America people do, and the last thing that most general managers are going to do in a situation like that, is rock the boat completely and make it your decision, right? Ryan Poles could look like a hero if he decided to trade Justin Fields and go get a franchise guy, and that franchise guy work out. But let's make no mistake. If he were to do that, and just 1 year in, Justin Fields is looking like an MVP candidate, and your rookie looks like a rookie, there's a chance that guy gets let go immediately because of the optics of all of that. So the thing that's going to stop the Bears from doing it, in my opinion, isn't the validity of why you should do it, but more of the optics of it. So it's not going to happen. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about what they would, what would happen if they did do it. And I've seen Sean, he's obviously in the chat at times too. Jalen Hurts is an athlete. I get it. I understand. And the Bears are going to win the NFC North. Go ahead and book it. Sean's been on. He is riding this train of Justin Fields, and that's fine because I love exactly where this track is headed for me personally. Mm-hmm. And maybe I'm wrong, fellas. We had this argument earlier in the year. Has your mind changed at all about Justin Fields? You were getting on the bandwagon, then you quickly realized, oh, well, man, maybe I was still right. I shouldn't have gotten off the bandwagon.
I do think that there's still enough time for him to be good. I still think that you can develop, because I look at Josh Allen's of the world. There's not very many of them, but there is a chance. But it takes a really special coaching staff to do it. It takes a lot of GM manipulation and roster building for that to really come to fruition. So this offseason is really critical for the Bears in order for Justin Fields to succeed. I think I'm not on the bandwagon that he can do it alone, though. I don't think that he's a Joe Burrow type athlete or a Mahomes or some of these guys that carry below talent and raise them above. I see that you're looking at me funny, Reed.
Yeah, Joe Burrow doesn't have a whole lot of below talent, but yeah.
He does. He's got a terrible offensive line that makes him, have to make critical decisions very quickly. And, I mean, it's the same concept as the receivers. You're lifting up the receivers if you're going to point out Patrick Mahomes. It's just Joe Burrow has to make his offensive line look a lot better than what it already is, which is not very good to begin with. I don't think, getting back on topic, I don't think Justin Fields is of that mold. I think he needs a lot of help around him, a lot like Andy Dalton. Got to have a lot of talent around him to succeed, and that mold can win you a Super Bowl. It's been done before, but usually it takes like a really, really good defense or,
Right.
above average on both sides of the ball. So I don't know. It's going to be a really tough decision for them, I'm sure. But knowing, like you said, Trace, the optics of it, it just doesn't make sense for them to risk their fan base and their organization to have that problem on their hands, to have the optics look that bad when you're trading Justin Fields.
Listen, I'm a one in the hand is worth two in the bush kind of guy, right? And I'm not out on Justin Fields quite yet. I think that he can be a great quarterback. I think he can see major strides in the next season to where he becomes, a Pro Bowl quarterback, one of the top 10 in the league. That being said, that if the Bears, they have this unique position with the number 1 overall pick to where they can do fun stuff. They can drastically improve their team. And the only way that I'm dealing Justin Fields in this whole debacle is if I know I can definitely improve at quarterback. And you don't know that you're going to do that with Bryce Young. You don't know you're going to do that with C.J. Stroud. You don't know if you're going to do that with anybody in the draft. There's only one way that you can definitively improve yourself at quarterback, and you might get some moans and groans here, but it is exactly what was brought up in the chat earlier. It is moving Justin Fields for Lamar Jackson. I think that fits both teams very well. The Ravens are already built for a running style offense, so you put Justin Fields, a younger quarterback, in that, who's under player control. And then the Bears get a better quarterback, an MVP caliber quarterback that has missed 8 games over the past 2 seasons, has been on the bench during the playoff run for the past 2 seasons, but is still an incredibly productive quarterback. MVP talks when he's out on the field. And he's only 25 years old. Yeah, you're going to have to pay Lamar Jackson coming here soon. But you incredibly improve at quarterback by moving Justin Fields for Lamar Jackson. So that's the only way in which I think the Bears should move. And then you could start building your team around with the picks that you have.
And they got the money too. They got
Right.
$100+ million in cap space. That's a smart move.
The Bears are primed and ready to go, and they're in a position within their franchise to go out and make a push to try to get guys that supposedly surround him. I'm just wondering, at what point do we say that Justin Fields has the quote-unquote talent around him to where we can fairly judge him? Because every time I bring up criticism of this guy, it's always because of someone else. It's like, well, he was 12 for 22 for 110 yards because his offensive line isn't good or he doesn't have any weapons. Yet Andy Dalton starts the very next week for the Chicago Bears and he throws for 210 yards and 2 touchdowns and the Bears win. And again, I'm not suggesting that Justin Fields at this very moment is worse than Andy Dalton, but I just want some accountability, and I'm just waiting for that time to come when we can hold this guy accountable because I don't think he's very good. Let's move on to the Bengals, who obviously pick later in the first round because they're better than the Bears, and that's how the NFL works. I don't think any of these guys that have been brought up before that are big marquee names, whether it be the Robinson kid out of Texas or the Meyer kid out of Notre Dame, I don't know if any of these guys are going to even be there, right? A lot of these mock drafts that I'm looking at right now have 2 tight ends that are still there, that the Bengals are kind of like I don't want to say flip-floppy on, but it depends on what mock draft you look at and which one you believe in and who they're going to take. One of them is obviously Darnell Washington out of Georgia, who's gotten a lot of hype because of just his athletic specimen. I still think he's very raw. And then the other one was the tight end out of Oregon State, who I don't have his name right off the top of my head right now. I'm sure I could dig it up or one of you guys. Musgrave. I just don't see how. I guess I just don't see how it's a foregone conclusion that they're going to go and try to get a skilled position. I think most Bengal fans would say, and maybe I'm wrong here, but let's just take a stab again at a tackle, keep building depth on the line, and are you guys of the mindset to where they're going to draft based off need, line, or you just continue to do maybe what some other franchises do, which is you genuinely take the best player available as long as it's not like a quarterback or, is quarterback the only position that you don't draft best available?
Yeah, Probably running back. My
Yeah.
take on running back, but why would you go and if there's a tackle available that's graded at a mid-second round, why would you go and reach on him at the third one just because you need a tackle? Right? Why would you go and do that when you can, draft a year and ahead like the Bengals have? So if the wide receiver is the best available guy, yeah, you take him. If a tight end's the best available guy, you take him because those are spots that we're going to need in a year, similar to what the Bengals did last year by taking a safety and a cornerback early in the rounds. Cam Taylor-Britt, what round was Cam Taylor-Britt drafted in? Third or fourth? But they took Dax Hill in the first.
We took Cam in the second.
Okay, so we took defensive secondary guys in the first 2 rounds because we knew that was going to be a need 1 year down the line. And that's going to be a need on this team with Tyler Boyd missing next year. So, yeah, you take the best available guy. You don't reach on anything. You take anybody that isn't a quarterback, that isn't a running back. I'd prefer a pass catcher.
The way I think about it is it really depends on the free agency. In my opinion, they're probably going to try to fill in their needs in free agency the best they can. I don't know if they're going to be able to fill it efficiently enough to not draft best player available at that said position, like where it marries the two together. Excuse me. And what I mean by that is in the first 2 rounds, I think they will pick a tackle. I think they will because they're not going to get someone long term that makes sense at the right tackle position. Excuse me. I see a real possibility of the Bengals going and getting a stopgap guy for the line. Someone like Jermaine Elamior. He's a guy from the Raiders. I didn't pronounce his name correctly at all. But he's a guy.
Next time, just say it really fast and act like you know.
Yeah. So he's a guy that I think that they could plug in that makes sense. He's cheap. Get him on a 1 or 2 year deal, rotational piece. Then in the draft, they're not forced to take in the first round, but in the first 3 rounds, you're probably looking at trying to fill in that need for a long-term spot. That's what I think their strategy is going to be. And because of that, I do think that they could potentially go for tight end because it's the same thought process.
But the tight ends that are available are different, unique tight ends, right? Darnell Washington as a tight end is a completely different type of tight end than a Michael Mayer. And I love Darnell Washington. I'm a Georgia guy. Maybe I'm a little bit of bias here. My only issue with Darnell Washington is that he's had knick-knack injuries throughout his entire career at Georgia. He'll miss a game here. He'll miss a game there. When you're that big, that strong, that fast, it's not to sound like Bill Nye the Science Guy up here, but it's physics. It's just science. That there's a more likelihood that those ligaments have a lot more stress on them than your average type of player. And my main concern, if I were to draft Darnell Washington, is what is his injury and or health going to be for the foreseeable future in the NFL? If he's healthy, 100%. I don't know if there's one guy I wouldn't rather have because at the end of the day, Darnell Washington is basically a tackle. That's what he is. He's an incredibly blocking tight end that you could argue if he wanted to, he could play tackle. If you gave him 1.5 to 2 years, in my opinion, and you literally just sat there and did line drills time and time again, Darnell Washington could be a legitimate offensive lineman. He just so happens to be incredibly athletic, and he can run around, and he has good hands, and he can catch the ball. So they stick him at tight end instead because that's more valuable to a team. My main point to this is if you are worried about drafting a tackle and you still want a little bit of upside when it comes to possibly somebody that can run a route and catch a ball, I think Darnell Washington is a perfect fit. The main concern I have, as I've said again, is all of that is relatively worthless if you can't stay on the field. And that is something that I don't know when we start grading guys out, unless, because this is what I always hear, unless a guy has been severely hurt year in and year out, nobody ever talks about their quote-unquote health. But if a guy like Darnell Washington misses 2 games here, comes back, misses 1 game, then he plays. He left the Ohio State game in the first quarter. Now, he did come back and play in the national championship game, but that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. And I don't know if you know this or not. I'm sure you do. But the NFL has grown men in it, and college is a little bit different. So if you get hurt in college, there's a good chance you get hurt in the NFL. And the same could be said about Tua. That's the main concern I had about Tua when he came out of college, is he reminds me a little bit of like a Darnell, where, he just gets hurt. And I don't know if that's maybe that's something that you shouldn't be able to project on guys, but that's how I feel about it. I hold guys accountable for whether they play or don't play. And not to jump subjects, but Nick Senzel's a guy. I mean, he might be a great guy and an unbelievable player. But at some point, if you can't stay on the field, then you're worthless. So that's my main concern as a Georgia fan, telling folks that are looking to draft Darnell, is I don't know what that looks like from a health perspective.
I will say.
Is that $1 in the jar?
That's like half. Is it half?
50 cents.
50 cent. The draft class this year is very top heavy in tight end. I mean, I was just looking at a mock draft, very reputable guy, Mel Kiper.
I thought this was going to be like Smith, like you were going to come up with some random name. Some name I've never heard about.
He is
before.
very reputable, Casey.
You named the most famous mock draft guy in the business. Like, yeah, you're going to love this country singer, little guy, Garth Brooks.
Let's hear what Mel has to say.
He's got 4 first-round tight ends, which is very, very crazy to me to think about. Darnell Washington, Luke Musgrave, Dalton Kincaid, and Michael Mayer. Which only helps the Bengals, in my opinion, because you look at the rest of the draft. I know we're not like super high up, but there's guys like Kalijah Cansey that have been mocked to us that he's a really good defensive tackle. Broderick Jones, a tackle from Georgia.
Yep,
I know
he's a good
you're
player.
familiar with him. He could fall to the Bengals. And there's guys like Dalton Kincaid that could fall down. You never know. Quentin Johnson. You could get a receiver there. I mean, there's a lot of different potential picks there that I don't know if there's anything really, and it's really hard to predict the back end of the drafts.
Of course it is.
But I don't think there's anything at the current moment set in stone until after the combine, which I think the interviews start today.
Right.
And then the actual action starts Thursday, and it lasts until, I think, Tuesday or something like that. It goes every single day after that. I'm looking forward to seeing the tight ends because that will really show and tell us if there really is 4 in the first round.
Do you put a lot of stock into the combine? I'm just thinking to myself the other day, for as much technology as we have anymore, for as good as tape as we have on guys now, back in the day, maybe when you had some guy coming out of Division II or maybe lower level, we'll call it Division I school. Right. What tape do you really have on this guy? Probably not a whole lot. So the NFL Combine, you get a guy in here, you finally see him in person. But I'm to the point now, Casey, where it's like, I don't know how much stock I'm going to put inside of 2 days of simulated drills and how fast a guy can run. Because if nothing else, I almost think like the Combine at times is like the cute girl at the bar. It's like, yeah, it might seem like a good idea to like fall for this trap of this short moment in time of this person because, there's just it looks good running a 40-yard dash or they look good doing a cone drill. But you have like 20 games of tape of them actually playing the game that you're playing. You can't evaluate them on that. Like, why don't you just use that as like the end-all be-all? And maybe they do, and I'm overstepping my bounds here. But I just couldn't imagine watching the NFL Combine, and Michael Mayer decides he's going to run the best run if he's ever ran in his life, and he runs a whatever it'd be, 4.5 40. And Darnell Washington doesn't get a good start, or vice versa. You could use whatever player you want. He doesn't get a good start on the line, and he runs a 4.7. And it's like, well, that's the difference now? No way. I'd be curious to see what the chat thinks about this. I'm almost to the point now where I'm not saying it's a nothing burger, but the NFL Combine is just an optical illusion that the NFL puts on every year. It's just something to talk about. I don't know how much weight or merit it actually holds.
The Combine confirms what they see on tape. That's what I've been told, at least. And I don't know how much it really factors in, like maybe 10, 15%. But let's just say Darnell Washington runs faster than expected, people got him at a 4.65. I mean, let's say he does run a 4.58. That is incredibly different, and that is something that would just boost his stock, regardless of what we feel. I mean, as casual fans, I would agree with you.
Do you think that's reasonable though? Like, do you think that actually translates to the actual game? Because there's a wide receiver that blew the doors off everybody. They got really excited, and he just so happened to get drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals, and how'd that turn out?
Yeah, I mean, there's other factors there too, but I think what it shows is that there's a athletic profile there that you didn't think was there before. And that's what the combine is really useful for, is finding guys that maybe didn't blow you away in the stat column, but they tested so freakish, and then they turn around and play in the NFL, and they end up being a really, really good pickup because they're just an athlete above everyone else in the class.
Can we run faster than the slowest person at the combine? Is there a chance? Can one of us run faster than the slowest person at the combine?
Yeah, 100%. There's going to be some linemen there that we're faster than.
Okay.
Yeah. 100%.
All right, I was just wondering. I didn't know how quick those linemen were running. What's a good 40 time in the office here? Less than 5? Something along those lines? We got our main man, Darren, back, who he is coming on the show, the head coach of Northern Kentucky, the Norse, who we'll get into. We're right out of Hamilton, Ohio, who they have a guy named Trey Robinson that hopefully plays well for him down the stretch. Darren, thanks for coming on. I'm coming off the bench myself. I found out a few hours ago that I was going to do a show. I seen the lineup. I said, if he's willing to come on, I'm willing to talk to him, and we can have some fun chatting about college hoops. I appreciate you coming on, and I kind of liken it to the idea of you coming on here, you looking, and you realize that the best player fouled out of who you expected to possibly see, and you're just trying to find that guy off the bench, and that's me. So here I am.
Trace,
thank you for coming on, man.
March Madness officially begins on Thursday, right? And it's a next man up mentality. You got to do whatever you got to do. It's survive and advance. Survive and advance, right? And if you're in there number 2, then you got to be good enough to step up and make plays when it counts.
That's right. I don't know if I'm number 2. I'm just the guy that they decided to slide in here today. So we'll start. we'll start with that. Let's start with that because I've looked over your resume before the show. You obviously had been in a situation here before where you're no stranger to March and having some what I would call some late runs into March. When does the light bulb turn on, if you will? When the mentality switches from regular season to, okay, we're now in a position where it feels like the games mean more. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I know there's coach speak out there, but there's got to be a time frame in the season when that shifts.
Yeah, I feel like it's like towards the end of the year, right? Like the last couple of weeks, you can see the tournament, from there, so to speak, and. I think that your guys start to understand that the season's almost over. You're building towards a tournament. There's a lot of talk of seeding in our league. If you finish in the top 4, you get a home game. So that comes into play in the last few weeks as well. And so I really feel like it's the last couple of weeks heading into the tournament. You start to build that up. And then, of course, the week of, you really flip the switch and say, hey, this is what it's all about.
So you guys head into the Horizon League tournament as the 4 seed. You played Oakland in a few short days. Now that the momentum, or as you said, that light bulb has turned on, how do you feel about your team to start the year versus now? Obviously, it seems like an incredibly long time. What is maybe the most optimistic or the most positive thing that you didn't see that happened during this year that you didn't see before coming to start it?
I think the biggest thing, and honestly, we had hoped for it at the beginning of the year, but what's happened the last couple of weeks, which for us we're really excited about headed into tournament play, is that we feel like our bench and our depth is really come along. We've got more than just our starters contributing, and not just in coming in and giving solid minutes, but a little production on the scoreboard as well, right? And so. Again, at tournament time, you need all hands on deck. You never know who's going to have to step up and make a big shot or or who's going to get in foul trouble, and you need a guy to step in and maybe play some extended minutes, and maybe he just needs to be solid defensively. But whatever it is, we feel like in the last few weeks that we've been able to go 8-9 deep, and those guys really contribute at a level that we don't feel like there's a lot of drop off. And so that's something that's a real positive for us. And just in general, Trace, I mean, for us, our mentality is this whole thing is about 3 days in March, right? I'd love to go undefeated. I'd love to, be the regular season champs every year in the horizon, but it kind of doesn't matter, right? You're not making the NCAA tournament in our league unless you win the conference tournament in March. And so we're pretty big about talking about being our best heading into March and 3 days in March and how we're built and the way we work. And so, you start to draw on all of that as you get into tournament week as well.
That brings up a very valid point, and one that we've talked about in this office, whether it's fair or unfair. We've gotten to the point in college basketball where most of these teams are going to get judged based off of a tournament that happens at the end of the year, and you start playing in November, but most people pay attention to a 4-week window, and they say this team was frauds or they were legit, whether that's fair or unfair. What is that like in the coaching circles, the fraternity within the coaches that obviously within the Division I level? Is that something that's, I don't want to say frowned upon, disliked, or is that something where people are like, you know what, it is what it is. That's if I'm going to get judged off that, then I'm going to live with it, and I'm not upset about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a reality of the situation, right? I mean, it's kind of the nature of our business. You can do a great job all year long. I mean, there have been times where, maybe as a coach, you feel like you've done one of your better coaching jobs on the whole. But if March doesn't show it with wins, then it doesn't really matter. We had an unbelievable stretch last year. I think we finished like 11-2 in our last 13. Had a lot of new guys, weren't really expected, I don't think, to do a whole lot and end up in the championship game and play great with the exception of about 4 minutes and lost the game. And so it becomes a downer of a year. That just is what it is, But I also think for our guys, it's a great lesson for life too. That sometimes that's how things are, and so what do you need to do to be your best when it matters most?
I have a question that probably varies from year to year, but you look at these conference tournaments that are a one-bid league, and you realize, as you said to start this interview off, that it really just comes down to this: the regular season is what it is, but most people are gonna put all their eggs in the basket, which is the tournament. Do you like going into a tournament where you're the prohibitive favorite, if you will, the one that's supposed to win, and if you don't win, it feels like a complete failure? Or do you like being more in a spot where maybe you're at now, there's 3 or 4 teams in the league that you could argue, have every right to win the league? I know you'd probably say you'd rather be in the position to where you have clearly the best team, but I would assume that there's a little bit of a burden that comes with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both. I think what real pressure is not having what you need, right? What is it? The old Lee Trevino or somebody used to say, pressure is when you got $100 bet on a putt and you got $20 in your pocket. Pressure is when you don't have the ability to do it at all. So yeah, if you feel like you got the best team, I think that's a great place to be in. I think the more important thing is, whether you have that team or not, is can you get your guys in a frame of mind and kind of an attitude of where, hey guys, we're going to go play loose and we're going to go play confident, because the last thing you want to do is get tight at tournament time. And so again, that's a mentality you try to build during the year and then really draw upon it when tournament time comes, because that's at the end of the day, this game is about players, and players got to make plays on both ends. And in order to do that, they got to be flying around and playing with some confidence, man.
Yeah, your best players have to make the big-time plays when it matters the most for most teams to make runs in the NCAA tournament, and certainly to get in the NCAA tournament for many of the schools, such as Northern Kentucky, you got to win the conference tournament first. So the last parting question I have for you is you've had successful runs, and correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm utilizing the internet as a resource, so I don't know how accurate it is or inaccurate it is. At times it can serve both. You had one Sweet 16 run as a head coach, correct? And then you also had a situation where you got a tournament taken away from you.
Yes.
When that tournament got taken away from you and you sit here on the brink of an opportunity to earn your berth again, what do you miss most about being in the big dance? And when I say miss, it's not as if, it's been forever, but nonetheless, how big of a difference is it for the experience of these kids that have been in your program for 3 or 4 years to get an opportunity to play in it versus not? Because you've had to experience it, but some of your guys haven't.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that was the biggest disappointment of not being to actual play in the tournament when we qualified for by winning the tournament my first year here, right, Trace? Is that,
Right.
we had some guys that had never competed in it or maybe some guys that were going to be in a different role being able to compete in the tournament. And so, I mean, the NCAA tournament, the experience itself is really unlike anything else in college basketball. And so, as a coach, you want that for your players. You want every guy that you coach to be able to experience that, because it's just something that they take with them and can build upon and really cherish for the rest of their lives. And I think the other thing is, the NCAA tournament appearance, especially for a school like Northern Kentucky, it does so much for your school, right, in terms of exposure and kind of solidifying your donor base and your alumni and bringing an element of pride to your university. And so, and quite honestly, that's something our school could use right now. And so there's so many things that are positive that come from playing in the NCAA tournament that, as a coach, and I had it as a player as well, 3 different times and got to experience advancing twice. And so, I've been a part of it and at every kind of level, so to speak, player and coach. And so really as a coach, what you want it for is you want it for your players and you want it for your university. And so that's kind of my mindset heading into it. And, again, we feel like our best guys are playing well. And here's the thing, Trace, that everybody in the area that might be listening needs to know. It's the beginning of March Madness officially Thursday night right here at Truist Arena in Highland Heights, Kentucky. And you know what? Xavier's not playing. Cincinnati's not playing. Ohio State's not playing. Kentucky's not playing. I know that one for sure because my son's on the team.
That's
I'm
right.
just telling you, you want to get your March Madness fix and get ready to maybe cheer on your team, maybe Xavier or the Bearcats. Come in here and get yourself right on Thursday night by back in the local team in Northern Kentucky in tournament action.
Fire me up, Coach. I there's not a better time of the year for me personally. I love just the passion that comes with college basketball, the do or die moments that exist, the late game situations that you could never have imagined possibly ever happening right in front of your eyes. And Coach, I don't know if you believe in speaking things into existence, but depending on where you wind up when you win the Horizon and you possibly can get into this tournament. And last question for you. Do you like the first 4? Do you think that's fair for teams that won their league like as a 16? They have to go and play in the first 4?
Man, that's a great question, Trace. Honestly, I think that ought to be for the 11 seeds that were in high-powered conferences that had 100 opportunities to win games to secure their spot and didn't. I kind of feel like if you win your tournament, if we're going to include leagues like the Horizon League, then you ought to just be in the NCAA tournament. Those other schools, man, they had how many chances during the year to get in, and they didn't. Let them play that off in the first 4 if we got to get down to 64.
Yeah, because I was trying to make a deal here. Obviously, we can go with the SID. It's like if you guys are able to make the tournament, we're going to speak that into existence on this show. We're an NKU show at this point. I mean, we're gonna see if we can round up the gang and bring as many of our loyal followers as we possibly can and cheer on the Norse. And the reason I brought up the first 4 is because I almost feel like, and I don't want to swear on the show, but it's just wild to me that you could win the tournament, then you get placed into the first 4. And it still feels like to the average fan that that's not really the tournament yet. When you earned every bit of the right to be in it. So I'm not speaking for you. I guess I'm more of proclaiming something than anything. But I just could not imagine me getting a deal done here, you winning the league, and you're like, "Yep, you guys are. We'll get you some tickets. We'll get you to wherever we're going, and we're expected to be in Columbus or wherever else." And next thing you know, we're told we have to go to Dayton on a Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever it is, and I that would upset me to no end. But
well, I can tell you this: if that does happen, we're still in the NCAA tournament, and if we win, it's the first win. We are counting it as the first win in Northern Kentucky University history.
All right, fine. Well, and it's a little bit of a shorter drive, so maybe I shouldn't complain of heading to Dayton.
Yeah,
we'll take it however we can go. But Darren, I appreciate you coming on here. I know that obviously you are a big fan of Thom. When Thom gets some of his situations figured out, we'll reach back out to you. And I know that we enjoy talking basketball with you, and hopefully we get to see the Norse playing late into March. But until then, take care.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. Best of Thom.
All right, see you there. All right, head coach of the Norse. For those that don't know, I have a little small place in my heart for the Norse. Not because Casey went there. I could care less about that. It's mostly because my head coach, or a coach that gave me a chance to play college baseball, Coach Brennaman. He coaches at NKU, and just the idea that Darren didn't have to come on here. He could have seen the email that Casey sent and said, "Hey, Tom's not in today," and he could have blown us off and went on his merry way. But no, he stuck around and got an opportunity to enjoy some time with us this morning. So thanks to him, and best of luck to the Norse, and we will continue to follow the Norse. They got a guy right here from Hamilton, Ohio, Reed. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. His name's Trey Robinson. You ever heard of him?
Trey Robinson, great ball player. Great.
Is that all you got for me?
I mean, what else do you want me to say?
I thought you were going to give the proclamation that you think that he might be the best player that you've seen play while Chatterbox started, if you will. He's one of the better players.
He's one of the better. He's not the best. He was great. They won 18 games when he was here.
Am I putting you on the spot by saying who is the best?
The best player, the guy that keeps coming up in my mind anytime that they bring him up, is Kobe Rogers, and I don't know how he didn't go Division I. Nate Johnson up there at Akron was great. Kobe Rogers, down there in D2 somewhere? He played for St. X. He's fantastic. I don't know who the best player is. Yeah. Logan Duncan was great.
He was. Logan Duncan was a really good player. PB's Ghost says, what did he say? He said, "Hey, now, knock the Dayton bashing off. I lived in Dayton for 10 years. I think UD Arena is one of the best arenas in the country. I love UD Arena. I have nothing against the first four in regards to what it is. But listen, if you got a one-bid league, I guess is where I'm going with it. If you got a one-bid league and you win your conference championship, you shouldn't get stuck in the first four.
The 16 seeds should not be in Dayton. It's not to take away from what Dayton is and the venue and the experience of the first four. It's one of the best events that gets put on of the tournament. It's so special. It means a lot to the city. It means a lot to the arena. It means a lot to everybody that's a part of it. But there should not be a 16 seed playing in that event. It's dumb. It's you look at teams like, for example, a team that I know closer out to my house in D.C., Mount St. Mary's. They've been to the NCAA tournament, I think, 3 times in the last 10 years, but all 3 times they've gone to Dayton and they've never won a game. So they get to hang the banner that they make the NCAA tournament, but they don't get to play that 16 seed. They don't get to, get the police escort to the arena in some city and wherever they get sent to in America, and you get the fun of traveling to wherever. I mean, I guess from Mount St. Mary's to Ohio, whatever. But you get the point that there is an experience about being in the NCAA tournament that you miss out on when you end up in Dayton, that it should be reserved for the 11 seeds, the last 8 11 seeds that get into the tournament, and all 4 11 seeds should have to play their way in. But that's just my opinion. I think that would be the absolute best way to do it. Stick 8 11 seeds in there, and then the best 4 advance, and that's how you figure it out.
Is it worth saying that they get a chance to win a game in the tournament, though? Isn't that the catch-22 of playing another 16 seed? Because we've been doing this tournament for 60 years now. I guess it's been 40 years since the 16 versus 1, and there's only been one time where a 16's beat a 1.
Yeah.
So isn't the catch that you get a chance to win a game in the tournament and just not get bludgeoned, whatever that word is?
Yeah, unless they play Purdue. I mean, if they play Purdue, there's a chance, man.
I would love to see Corpus Christi try to stop
What
Zach
about
Edey.
the Golden Retrievers?
Yeah, who'd they beat?
USMBC,
UMBC.
right? I mean, what is it, UMBC?
UMBC, yeah.
UMBC, man. If they got stuck in Dayton, they would have never got a chance to beat Virginia. That's Paul's team. So, for those that don't know or haven't watched this show or haven't watched Box Lunch, Paul is completely out on Virginia. He's not a fan of it.
Because they play defense.
He's not a fan of defense. He likes people
score.
that can put the ball in the basket. I don't blame you. I mean, like you've said before, and when Mick Cronin was here at UC, that was Sean Spurlock, who you've seen in the chat, been part of Chatterbox in the very beginning. We've talked about this at length with Mick. He was a huge Mick guy, and I would always say, listen, my only thing against mixed teams, not against Mick, but mixed teams, is they have trouble scoring, which leads to really, really tight games. And when you get in the NCAA tournament, it feels like teams that have trouble scoring the basketball from time to time, there's more pressure that's put on them, and they don't play as well that they traditionally have throughout the regular season, and they're prone to getting upset and or beat early. And I'm not saying that was forecasted to a T at UC, but then he did go to UCLA, to be fair to him. But the reason they went far when he was at UCLA, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, is because they had guys that could score the ball. They were not the traditional rock fight type of team when he went far in the tournament at UCLA.
No, you're right. And that the same thing with UCLA though is that they have those guys back on this team, like Jaime Jaquez, Tiger Campbell, those guys that made that run. I mean, that team though, yes, to your point, Trace, that was the 11th best offensive team in the country that year. They could score the ball. They weren't just a team that went out there, defended the classic Mick Cronin type team. But man, our guy Mick, he's got it rolling again.
He does.
He's got it rolling again.
He does. For a program that felt like they were the Nebraska football of college basketball to a certain extent. And maybe Matt Rule will turn around the Nebraska Cornhuskers in football and they'll make me eat my words. But UCLA felt dead in the water. Felt like it was one of those programs that had a legacy but did not have any kind of identity in the modern era. And give credit where credit is due. Mick Cronin went out there and he changed that to a certain extent, and he's got them playing top 10 basketball almost every single year. And one could argue that they should be a 1 seed. I mean, I'm of the mindset that I think they should get a 1 seed over a team like Purdue if Purdue can't win out. But that's here nor there.
For what it's worth, during that UCLA run, I'm looking at their scores right now. They weren't blowing the doors off of teams. I'm looking at total numbers here, right?
Sure.
First game of the tournament, 134. Second game, we're looking at 120.
How many times did they score 70 points?
They scored 70 points 3 times. All 3 of them were overtime games.
Okay.
Now, they scored 90 points in the Final Four against Gonzaga. They scored 88 points in Alabama in the Sweet 16. But in the Final Four, the Elite Eight, guess what they scored? 51-49 was the final score of that Elite Eight game.
That's what I think about when I think of Mick Cronin basketball.
Right.
And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. I'm not here forecasting that it's terrible. It's just to Paul's point that sometimes when you get into the tournament play, those teams scare you because those are the teams that could lose to a 16 seed. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, could you in your right mind ever see an Alabama losing to a 16 seed? The answer is probably no. There's too many possessions in the game to where the better team ultimately prevails. When you limit the possessions, you shrink the game down, which is why high school basketball from time to time has a severe problem because these teams that aren't as good, they want to stall ball, as you would say. Teams could possibly sneak in and win a game when there's low-level possessions.
And that's a Houston type. I'm not saying that Houston's going to lose in the first round, but if you're looking for a team that is going to be a 1 seed that plays, low possession type games, I mean, Houston is the 346th slowest team in the country. I mean, there's only like 19 teams slower than them.
PB's Ghost brings up a great point as well, and we've talked about this before. And I know that, Paul, you're on one side of this aisle, and Reed's on the complete opposite side of the aisle. He says, as were UD versus Xavier and UC, I'm assuming he was talking about when they played Louisville possibly, we need to bring back those rivalries. I think it'd be great because we have so many what I would call relatively good, if not great, arguably, college basketball programs within this area.
Right.
The same way that they have the Crossroads Classic. Thank you, Paul. You knew exactly where I was going with that. The same way they have that, I would love nothing more than to put 2 games in one arena on a Saturday, and they'll be all local teams, and you just transfer them around every year. Yeah.
Ohio State and the other 3 big teams. Why are you against Xavier and UD sparking that rivalry back up?
I think that doing it in that setting would be great. I think the home and home thing, it is. I mean, it comes from a place of understanding where Xavier's scheduling is now at this point. They just will not schedule a game at Dayton, whether it's recruiting. They don't want to lose a game at Dayton. You don't want to go to an A10 team and lose. It's not so much the Dayton thing. You just don't want to go to an A10 team now at this point when you're in the Big East. I think that kind of has just passed you by. Same with Cincinnati when they go to the Big 12. It's just a matter of scheduling now at this point where these coaches look at this and how they build their schedule. And when you're in these kinds of leagues, very rarely do you just go and play a mid-major team for the nostalgia. But I do think that there is a scenario where, like, Chris Holtman was very open to it, to bringing in that idea of a Crossroads Classic type event. The problem then becomes if Xavier and Cincinnati get matched up against, like, is it a tournament or is it just a round robin where 2 teams play each other and then the next whatever? Does it become Xavier and Cincinnati playing each other on a Sunday and whatever, what's the contract?
Sounds like they're scared.
I hate
it
that.
sounds like not scared. But it's perfectly fine. It's a good answer. My problem is it sounds as if you feel like the risk isn't worth the reward when it comes to the NCAA tournament.
That's exactly
right. But the problem that me and Reed keep harping back to is that it's like at some point the juice is worth the squeeze from just the local interest of college basketball, of keeping things fresh and keeping things fiery and keeping things fun. I get it, the home and home thing. Maybe that doesn't make sense because you're admitting, if anything, Xavier fans and that athletic department is clearly admitting one thing. It's that UD Arena has a very good, if not incredible, home court advantage. Who wants to go play in an environment that's very difficult to play in against a team that might struggle a little bit in a league that you don't want to have a bad loss to because it doesn't make any sense? Because the algorithms and the computer metrics, they don't know, they're not giving extra credit towards certain buildings versus other buildings on road games.
Yeah.
Some road games are more difficult than others, as we all know, when you put the same team in there twice, right?
You don't get an extra bump in a metric just because it's a rivalry game and you have fun for the fans for nostalgia. These coaches are so zeroed in on making the NCAA tournament and setting yourself up for the best seed in March that they play the crosstown shootout. They play that every year. These are two major conference teams. I know Cincinnati's been the American. I get it. They're going to the Big 12. That's an irrelevant argument. When you look at Dayton, and somebody in the chat brings up PB's Ghost brings up they have cupcake teams. Yeah, if Dayton wanted to come to Cintas, I'm sure they'd be open to that. But Xavier will never go to UD Arena as long as Dayton is in the A10 because the metrics just don't reward that kind of a risk. Whereas if you go to if you have a Xavier type team going on the road to play a Big 12 team or a Big 10 team, whatever, you're really only playing like one or two road. Like Xavier this year only played one true road game in the non-conference. That was at Cincinnati. Right. They're not playing a lot. You play at home.
Well, Sean does bring up a point. Playing at Dayton is probably a Q1 or Q2 game at worst in most years. I mean, one would argue playing against Butler and DePaul, which I know you're forced to do.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's not going to be a worse loss than that. And this year, you've lost to both of those teams, and you're probably still going to have a relatively decent. I look at it from the perspective of a competitor. I'm not expecting to lose. That's fine. I'm going to go up to Dayton, and we're going to win. It'll be a Q1 or Q2 win, and we'll just add it to the resume. I know that's not how they think about it, but that's my thought.
Here's the other thing too, and this is kind of another way to think about this. When you look at Xavier's schedule, they really only have about one or two open days of the season. They have like their 4 bye games that they play, right, against whoever the Q4 games are that come in, whether it's like this year, Southern, Fairfield, Morgan State, those type teams, Norfolk State, whatever. Those type teams. They play about 4 of those a year. Then you have your 3 games in the exempt event tournament over Thanksgiving.
Right.
Then you play your Big 12 game in the Big 12 Big 10 Big East matchup. You play your Gavitt game against the Big 10 team. You play the Cincinnati game. There's your non-conference schedule right there. You're only allowed to play a certain amount of non-conference games, and Xavier's in so many contracts right now with all of these, the Big 10 challenge, the Big 12 challenge, all that stuff, that there's only so many open dates that you can't just add another one.
That's fine, Paul.
So,
I hear a lot of excuses, which is fine. Saying. I'm not saying that there's not merit to
like
what
I
you're
also
saying.
just don't have I personally, as somebody that comes from I don't ever think it. Dayton was not a rivalry to me. The only time we ever played them when I was in school, it wasn't a competitive game, won by 30. I know all the older people care about Dayton. But I don't care about playing that game. That rivalry means nothing to me. It was never a connection to me. The only connection I have is a blowout win. So I know it. I appreciate the history of it because I've followed the Cincinnati area programs forever.
Right.
But to the average, my friends that I roomed with in college that didn't know Xavier before they came to Xavier have no idea anything about Dayton, that it was a rivalry, whatever, that nobody cares. It's the people in the area, and I get that. But at this point where the programs are, they haven't played in so long, it just doesn't mean anything to anybody that's younger than 28 years old.
All right, fair. I would as a fan, right? And this is where Paul was making the point where they don't make the schedule to service their fans, right? They do it to service the program. But as a fan, I would much rather just take off one of the buys and let's play competitive basketball. Why do I want to see them play Fairfield by 100, beat Fairfield by 100, beat Morgan State? And I get that every program does that. You got to get wins.
Yeah.
You got to put the wins. Got to get the team ready and get a lot of confidence before you start playing these more competitive ball games. But at some point, you want to just have a more fun season.
Now that I agree with.
Let's talk about Cal real quick if you want, because I think
Sure.
that at the end of the day, you guys we could go back and forth on that topic forever, and it's not going to change. Unfortunately, more times than not, decisions are made behind closed doors at, the welfare of a program instead of the welfare of a fan. Almost all the time. And at no point in any organization, more than likely, are the Bengals, the Reds, or any college athletic program truly saying, what's the best thing for our fans? We'll do that over top the best interest of our organization. They might say that out loud. They might act like they care about that. But at the end of the day, if Xavier feels like they're going to get a better seed in the NCAA tournament, or they don't want to have the opportunity of playing a game that they don't think they're getting fair credit for when it comes to the criteria of the NCAA tournament, then they're not going to play.
It's the same thing that we've heard here in Hamilton for years as to why Hamilton and Baden don't play each other.
Yes.
The Dayton or the Dayton Xavier thing is it's a zero-sum game for Hamilton, right? They're supposed to beat Baden. Same with Xavier's supposed to beat Dayton.
Are they though? That's where I would completely disagree. And with this, we could go down a rabbit hole. I disagree with that. I think Dayton from time to time probably hasn't historically in the last 20 years been as good as Xavier, but there's been times where Dayton's just as good, if not better than Xavier. And I would argue if Dayton played Xavier right now, Dayton have every bit of chance to win that game. It might be a 1-point spread for all we know. I don't think there's that big of a difference in the two programs. It wasn't that long ago that they had Obi Toppin were a number one seed in the tournament, and they could possibly have a chance to win the entire national.
It doesn't matter what the reality is, Trace. I'm just telling you what it feels like. I'm telling you.
Well, I think that feels like that because you're a fan of Xavier and you're not a fan of Dayton. If you were a fan of Dayton, I feel like you'd be a little more prone.
I think that's the point. I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Because it's the same thing when I went to Butler last week or 2 weeks ago whenever Xavier played at Butler. Butler was doing a Xavier sucks chant every time out. And I asked a Butler fan, I said, are you guys doing this because Xavier is here, or is this something you guys do every game? And he goes, no, we chant that at every game. I was like, I don't even think about Butler's not even on my radar. I don't think about Butler. I don't think about them as a rival. And every time I get Dayton people tweeting at me about, in my mentions or whatever, one of my best friends went to Dayton. I follow Dayton. I cover Dayton. I don't have anything against Dayton. I don't think about him. It's not a rivalry to me. But it seems to me like a lot of Dayton people care about beating Xavier. I don't care. In fact, I like when Dayton's good. It's fun. Makes my job better, especially on my podcast. I like covering them. The games are great. But for Dayton to play Xavier, it always seems to me like the Dayton fans care a whole hell of a lot more about playing Xavier than the other way
I would
around.
suspect that's largely because of the leagues they play in.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what it comes down to. Listen, if Dayton was playing in the Big 12 and Xavier was playing in the A10, right?
Yeah.
Xavier fans would probably be looking around we want to play Dayton. We want to show that we belong on that level. Yeah. So that's fair. Let's talk about Cal, because I seen Brian B in the chat talked about Cal stall balling at the end of a game. I think Cal's a very controversial figure for a multitude of reasons. One is he has a little flamboyant nature to him, right? He has I don't want to say, I guess I will call it a confidence, because I don't like using the word ego, because people think that anytime you use the word ego, that quickly gets turned into a negative thing. Cal gets punished for how much talent he has on his team. People will immediately point to the idea that look what he's done with this many NBA guys, or look what he's done with this many talented players that everybody knows, whether it be DeMarcus Cousins or the John Walls of the world. And obviously when he was at Memphis, he had Derrick Rose. I give him credit for that. I don't know if you guys feel the same. We'll get into this in a minute. But I say to the common folk that want to get on him about how good of players he has and how they maybe have underperformed, at least he has them. Because it wasn't that long ago that, yes, I can't think – Gillespie was there, and you didn't have those guys. They weren't roaming the halls at Kentucky.
Billy Gillespie.
You had bad players. So before we just completely act like he's, terrible, you have to give him some credit for getting the guys in the building. Now, what he's done with them when he gets in the building can be a little bit controversial at times as well. Because what does he have to do to earn the respect from that fan base? And I think there's only one answer, which is probably the thing that we talked about before with Sean Miller going to a place like that, or other coaches making that next jump to a place like that. To where, yes, it's nice to be at a place like Kentucky, but when your only expectation is literally to win the whole damn thing, it seems like a very unrealistic ask. And I say this in saying that when I've watched Kansas, if you want to go to another blue blood program, I've watched Kansas have incredible teams over the past 15 years, and they've won twice. One of them you could argue was on a complete fluke, and the team last year that won it all was probably, out of the 15 years that I've watched, their 13th best team. So I get Cal's as a lightning rod. However, I lean to the side of Cal is a little hold on to your seat for this one. He's a little undervalued at Kentucky. I don't think the fan base appreciates him to their fullest, because if he leaves and they bring in the next guy, just like they ran Tubby out of there, they brought in the next guy, it didn't work out, did it? So I guess I'm not going to be up here and be a Cal stan. I do think there's times in basketball games, towards the end of games, he definitely gets out-coached. I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but he gets out-coached.
Yeah.
But I also am going to give him credit for the fact that he's got guys out there that might be just good enough to beat everybody. It doesn't matter what he does. So he should get credit for that too.
He feels a little tired there, right? I mean, he's been there for 13 years. What's the longest tenured? How long was Pitino there? Probably less than 10. Tubby Smith was there right around 10 years. So he's one of the longer tenured coaches in Kentucky's history. He won early on, but pretty much in the past 5 years, hasn't done a whole lot. He feels tired there, continuously getting NBA talent and not doing a whole lot with it. And UK fans think in their mind that they're always going to get that talent because they always have gotten that talent. Always have gotten that talent. And Coach Cal is a great recruiter. He did it everywhere he went. But at some point, he just becomes the same guy you see on your TV every night when they lose. And you need a scapegoat. So Coach Cal has just become tired in that program, and they're ready to see where it goes next.
Is he the Dusty Baker of the UK Wildcats, as Dusty Baker was for the Cincinnati Reds?
Well, I mean, Dusty was only with the Reds for, 4 years?
I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's apples to apples, but to a small comparison of everybody's looking around. They're tired of not really being able to get over the hump. They've seen the success, but they're not all the way bought into it, and it just feels like you've said tired.
It feels closer to what the Steelers might recognize here coming soon if they don't win games, right? They've had Mike Tomlin. They're winning every year, but they're not getting to what the Steelers used to be. So that's where it feels like we're closer to. I don't think it's a one-on-one comparison with Dusty Baker because Dusty got that everywhere he was. Before even he was a coach for the Reds, he had this mantra, you can't win the big one. That's why he lost his 2 previous jobs. So when you don't win the big one here in Cincinnati, that just added on with Dusty. I don't think that's the same way with Calipari, if that's what you're asking.
I think Calipari's problem this season has been his stubbornness to change.
Yeah.
Because it was so obvious what the problems were with Kentucky earlier in the season. And now that Severe Wheeler has got hurt, I mean, fans were calling forever for Case and Wallace to kind of get the keys to the car for this team. And I spent the whole rebound rundown today talking about Kentucky. And
good episode.
Thank you. Case and Wallace now finally has control of this team, and it's only because Severe Wheeler got hurt that Cal was forced into making this decision. And now, hey, look at what's going on. Over the last 3 weeks, Kentucky's been the 4th best team in the entire country. 4th best in the country for the last month. And that's because they're doing exactly what everybody said all year. Now, that's not to say you listen to the fans when the fans want you to do something. But when everybody clearly saw the problem with this team and the offense being stagnant and everybody going nowhere. And Cal just seemed so stubborn to play it in his own way because that was what he planned to do. That was the guy that he had. And here's what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to change. And now all of a sudden, after Sheboy he was the National Player of the Year last year, and he was having a bad season. You bring him out, like we talked about on the show today, you bring him out from under the basket, you give Cason Wallace some more freedom, and all of a sudden, look what's happening. They're scoring. They're defending better. They're playing better. What I will be interested to see with Kentucky is whether this is a bit of a mirage. Not necessarily that I'm taking away everything from how well they're playing, but when you really dig deep into the schedule of how Kentucky is doing this, especially in the last 3 weeks, they have 2 very good wins over Tennessee. I'm not going to take anything away from that, but Tennessee is not that elite team that I think we all thought they were. They have a road win over Mississippi State, which is a good win. Florida was missing their best player. And Auburn, they got at home, and Auburn just, for what it's worth, and the credit to Kentucky, Auburn did not play well. But they also were coming off that loss to Georgia and a blowout loss to Arkansas. Now they've won 4 in a row. I'm just maybe tempering my expectations with Kentucky.
Sure.
But they have shown offensively the ability to get to the Sweet 16 now in the last couple of weeks, which you couldn't say a month ago after they were losing to South Carolina.
No doubt. And I think that there is something to be said about the idea of clamoring to this thought that you originally had. Coaches, elite level coaches, high level coaches are still human beings. Most human beings are that have any kind of competitive bone in their body, they want to be right. And sometimes to a fault. I do feel like there are times where coaches, not just Cal, but other coaches, they make the decision in their mind that this is the way they're going to do it, and they're going to die on the hill come hell or high water. And unless Wheeler gets hurt, or he gets, as some might have pointed out, maybe it was a fake injury to where it's like, hey, we're going to bench you, and then all of a sudden there's an ankle issue that pops up. I've seen this happen, and it's a case in point. Again, I always harken back to things that I've seen at Kansas because that's the program that I've watched extensively throughout the last 10 to 15 years. There was a guy named Abaji that you probably remember from last year. He came out and he played his first game at Kansas his freshman year. He came off of quote-unquote the red shirt bench, if you will. He was getting redshirted his freshman year. They were struggling. They brought Abaji in. He started playing pretty damn well for a few minutes. Then all of a sudden he played a little bit more. And then by the end of the year, you're like, he's one of the best players that we have, period. How in the hell was he getting redshirted? And my main point is that sometimes you just make mistakes. Sometimes as coaches, you just don't see something in a guy that's right there in front of you. You guys are laughing. I don't know what I'm missing here.
Read in the chat.
Adam Kunkel. You guys, I like Adam Kunkel.
I love Adam Kunkel.
I don't got nothing.
Reed hates him.
The worst.
Reed hates him.
He's the worst.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think Cal missed on the Wheeler thing.
Yeah.
But Cal missed on the Wheeler thing. And at this point, it's irrelevant because he's got it fixed. However, we'll see how it goes. Remy Martin, same kind of guy last year for Kansas.
Remy!
Did not get any love at all from Bill. Dude was playing like 4 minutes a game. And without Remy Martin, Kansas has no chance to win the national championship last year. He finally starts playing him more. And there was injuries involved with that whole situation and saga as well. But I guess the main point in this is sometimes the people that sit in the stands aren't completely clueless, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we watch a lot of basketball. People that sit in the stands watch a lot of basketball. Their opinions might not be as knowledgeable as a head coach that's done this for 20 years. But sometimes you're too close to the fire too, right? Like sometimes you're so close to a situation, it's hard to get clarity, which we've joked about from time to time here on this show. As I've said, like I said the other day, and Paul, I'll say it now that we're in here. The other day, I'm sitting around, I see on the Not Too Picky graphic, you're picking Virginia, getting 4 points at Carolina. I'm like, my man is so entrenched in college basketball, he can't just see that is just a sucker bet of all time. Like that makes no sense. It makes no sense. Yeah. It makes no sense that Virginia's getting 4. You can't place that bet.
Oh, well, I didn't.
I know you did. But sometimes you're too close to the fire to be able to see it.
Yeah.
All right, last thing I want to talk about with the Bengals here as we kind of go back and forth from topic to topic.
Do we
to
have
topic
Tracy
to
on
topic.
today?
We do.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
we're also open to phone calls.
All right. So 11:30 is Tracy Jones, I do believe. So really quickly with the Bengals, as we've kind of bounced around, from a free agent perspective, the hot commodity things that you see on the internet from time to time is, could they trade and could they go get Jalen Ramsey, or is there a chance that they sign Taylor Lewan? Is it Lewan or Lewin?
Lewan.
Lewan. Could they sign Taylor Lewan?
Bobby Wagner.
Bobby Wagner.
Kenny Galladay.
Galladay. I don't think you guys need any more Kenny Galladays. Just saying. I could be wrong. You
Yeah,
guys
up to
keep
me.
drafting wide receivers and weapons and tight ends.
We draft them well.
Yeah. Maybe you guys are on. Maybe the Bengals are on to something. Forget line.
That's my point.
Forget the linebackers. Forget all of the positions that
We draft
some
linebackers
people.
well.
Well, I'm not saying you don't draft them well. I'm saying you don't draft them like high. You're not taking a. Am I wrong on that? I mean, you're not.
Logan Wilson was
Logan Wilson was
probably
a
the
second-round
highest.
pick.
Well, okay, second round. But I'm just saying you're not taking a top 15, 20 pick with a linebacker. You're going to send
No,
that. You're going
God,
to. You're
no.
spending
Oh,
that
my
on the best
God.
wide receiver in the draft because
Oh
that's
my
what we
God,
do.
Read a heart attack.
A top 20 pick? Get a linebacker? What are you talking about? What is this, 1930?
If Ray
They
Lewis,
wearing leatherhead helmets? What are you talking about?
if Ray, I got a sincere question that you're going to make a complete ass of yourself right here by saying this. If Ray Lewis was in this draft and you knew what Ray Lewis was about and you knew all of Ray Lewis's things, now you could argue that maybe the game's changed since Ray Lewis played. But my point is,
Right.
if Ray Lewis was in this draft and the Bengals had a top 10 pick and he was sitting there right at number 9 and you had the 9th pick of the draft, would you take Ray Lewis?
Probably, but I also got to ask you this.
yeah,
I
baby.
probably got to ask you this.
All right,
If
let's hear
Ray
it.
Lewis comes out 20 years later, drafted in 1996, if he's drafted in 2016, is he as valuable as a player in today's game as he was 25 years ago? The answer is obviously no, not as valuable.
You're
The
right.
game has drastically changed. A slap-hitting shortstop isn't very valuable anymore.
It's a damn shame because that's what I was.
A 6 foot or 7'2" center Zach Edey playing 30 years ago is drafted in the top 5 of the NBA draft. He might not be drafted in the first round. Games evolve. Evolve with it, brother.
That is hilarious. Reed Mouse has decided to just flip this whole thing on its head. He doesn't want a running back, and he doesn't want any linebackers. He could care less about the position. In fact, I'm genuinely serious when I say if the Bengals don't select a running back and or a linebacker in the next 2 drafts completely at all,
5th rounders.
you'd be fine by it.
5th rounders. Get like a 4th round running back, 3rd, 4th, 5th, something. Just not the first 2 rounds. You get a running back in those. You'll be fine there. You'll be more than fine. And linebacker, we've got Logan Wilson. Logan Wilson's my favorite defensive player on the Bengals. But, I don't know.
Pratt's gone, by the way.
Jermaine Pratt's probably gone.
Probably. Have you seen this man? He's gone. He's gone like yesterday.
Well, we can get another one. You can get
another
a cheap linebacker in the free agency.
Which is fine.
This ain't rocket science.
Which is fine. I'm not arguing whether he should stay or go, but just based off his comments, you can't bring that guy back. I'm being dead serious. If people in the chat think he should come back after what he said, this guy's out here popping off left and right. You can't be out here degrading your coaching staff based off of when they're saying that you're going to play and not play and expect to come back and play for that very same coaching staff the next year. Are we being serious right now?
I agree. I'm out on Pratt. Yeah, I don't know. Like, if they bring him back, I'll take him. But like, if he's gone, I'm just indifferent. I guess is what I'm telling you. I'm indifferent on Pratt. He was a great player. Obviously, had one of the greater moments in my Bengal fandom history when he intercepted Derek Carr to win that game, win the first playoff game in 30 years. It's one of the best moments of sports in my life. But kind of out on him. I don't know. Indifferent, I guess I should say.
You know, I think here's my future hot take. I don't think we see a dip in production at all at linebacker next season. I think ADG is perfectly fine there. I mean, he had that interception the playoff game against the Bills. I don't know.
It's almost like it's the least important position on the defensive side of the ball.
And it's like Jermaine Pratt's popping off to me like he's I don't know. Who's the guy that plays for the 49ers that it's just escaping me right now?
Fred Warner?
Yeah, he's not Warner. I mean, it'd be one thing if Fred Warner's popping off saying some stuff like what he's saying. I mean, Jermaine Pratt, with all due respect, I'm not suggesting he's even a below average player. Maybe an average or above average player. But you are what you're worth, and as we've seen in sports all the time, you can only get away with so much. If you're Jamar Chase and you're saying those types of things, you can get away with it because the leash is a little bit longer, the more and more valuable you are to a franchise. Joe Burrow could go out and do whatever the hell he wants in Cincinnati right now, outside of maybe killing somebody. And he's still the starting quarterback in Cincinnati next year. Now, he's not going to do that. No one's rooting for any of him breaking laws or whatever, but you see, the point stands. Jermaine Pratt's not that guy, man. He's not that guy. He's not a guy that can go out here and start talking reckless and then expect us to walk back in the locker room and everything be okay.
Hey, at least, once he starts playing on third down, though, you better watch out.
Right.
You better watch out. He's going to be something.
Yeah. I mean, he's out here talking reckless, heading to the locker room in Kansas City, and then you followed up with that. I mean, he reminds me more and more of a little bit of a diva, and I don't really like divas that play for my football team. Maybe Cincinnati does, but I just don't see it. I don't see there being enough value at the position for the distraction that he could become.
Damn right.
Simple as that.
Trace, I got to ask you a question.
I got to answer it.
We had a Sir bomb earlier.
We did?
The Falcons have released Marcus Mariota. Officially naming Desmond Ridder QB1.
Did they say Desmond Ritter's QB1? Of course they didn't. So,
they could draft another guy.
So, if you're a conspiracy theorist, if you're one of those guys that believes the NFL has a script and they stick to it, I don't know if you've seen the Twitter files, but Lamar Jackson supposedly, probably was made up if we're being completely honest, hand up in the air of saying that I don't know if this is factual or not. But there were screenshots of people scrolling through the Falcons website last week with the number 1 jersey with Jackson on the back of it, Lamar Jackson jersey. So if Lamar Jackson goes to the Falcons, there will be, you want to talk about the tinfoils hat people coming out of the woodworks? There's going to be so many people that do believe that the NFL is completely scripted that it's going to be insane. Prepare yourself for that, folks.
Could you imagine if the NFL was scripted, what it would take to pull that off behind the scenes? Like, just for a second. Play that game. The amount of conspiracy.
If it was fully scripted, right?
I'm talking about if all these memes were true and it came out in 50 years that the NFL was scripted, the amount of conspiracy that it would take to convince thousands and thousands of people every year. I mean, I'm talking about thousands, like the players, the personnel, the front office, everybody.
Let's put on our tinfoil
All right,
hats
it's on.
Let's put the tinfoil hat on here. What about just convincing 40 people? How many refs work on a game? 4 or 5 refs?
There's
I thought
9,
it said 7.
There's like 7 or 9 or something like that.
Okay, so you're going to convince about 80 people, around 100 people.
Sure.
I don't think every ref needs to be in on it. I think that the back judges, hold a lot of weight. You can say whatever you want. There's only a few positions that really are on a NFL referee slate that you could argue really could be in on it. The referees one, and all the back judges. Because in the NFL, until they change the pass interference penalty and or holding penalty, I got news for you. Those are the 2 most lethal penalties you could possibly have in a football game, and you can change the outcome of a football game like that. And we've already seen it. I don't need to go through it. You guys know what I'm talking about. If you call a holding penalty, automatic first down. If you throw a flag on any kind of pass interference, it's more than likely a 20, 25, 30, 40-yard penalty. The referee, you call holding, which there's holding every play, as people argue. You call holding, sets the offense back 10 yards.
Have you ever watched
I don't
football?
believe the NFL scripted, by the way.
Yeah, none of us do.
Well, no.
Have you ever watched a football game with an uncle, grandpa, your dad, and not heard the phrase, there's holding every play? I mean, it's just whether or not they see it or call it. I've never watched a game of that not be brought up at least one time. Every Thanksgiving you ever been to, the uncle's like 2 feet from the screen, just looking at him like, man, they could call holding every play.
No doubt.
Every punt. Oh, where's the flag? There it is.
Block in the back.
Block in the back. Call that from a mile away.
Right. No, there's something to the idea of people that watch sports casually that want to. Is there anyone worse that when you're at a party and you're watching a sport that you care a lot about or a decent amount about or you know a lot about, and there's always that casual one random person that's just saying outlandish stuff that's like, oh, that's pass interference. And it's like, no, that's not pass interference. I don't want to sit here and argue with a relative of mine right now, but it's just like you're just scratching your head thinking like this clearly is how you get on the internet and you see some of the dumb stuff that's said is because people like this that don't have a name or a face to whatever they're saying can say whatever they want.
I hate when like people that don't watch sports a whole lot, it's late in the game, there's a penalty or there's something controversial. They're asking you to explain what's going on in full detail because they don't watch the game, they don't understand it. So now I'm sweating this game out. Like the Bengals are on the, getting ready to lose, getting ready to win, and like someone's just like, wait, whoa, what does that mean? Why are they going back? I thought they just scored. Like, why is there like a yellow marker on the screen? I'm like, God, I'm gonna choke you right now. Like, get out of my face.
That sounds like a very personal problem, doesn't it, fellas? That sounds right in line with some of the Reed Mouse stories that we've heard on this show before. I won't put you on the spot. Don't say nothing at all. Right. You get yourself in trouble. Yeah. But based off the conversations we've had with Reed on this show and other shows before, I think you can probably figure out where Reed runs into that problem from time to time. Yeah, look at Everett. Everett hit it. Nail. Right on the head. Lure up. I'd say it's not scripted, but it's obviously biased. That's 100% fact. Humans are biased, period. So I don't care what anyone says. Some of these referees probably like certain quarterbacks more than they like other quarterbacks. They're willing to go a little bit farther to protect a certain quarterback that they think's funny or they enjoy before the game than others. I do. That's just human nature. That's human nature. So anyway, let's get to one other topic that I wanted to talk about with the Bengals, which is I don't think they should go out and do a damn thing in free agency outside of possibly taking some lower
in baseball or in football.
I don't know if they have the best roster in baseball. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I misspoke originally.
I'm trying to think to myself as we were trying to get the tracer on as we speak.
Don't we have sponsors of this show?
We do.
We do have sponsors of this show. You want to get to those sponsors? Let's just have fun with it. Let's do this. You throw me the Pawnee ball.
All right.
Just throw it to me. Let's just don't. This is gonna be fun. Boom. Right here. Look at that. Athlete.
What kind of water is that?
It's Pawnee water. Reed, do you know where this water's made? Let's just do a quiz.
It's made here in the great city of Hamilton.
It is.
I actually
how do they
just
filtrate
delivered
it?
it. They just delivered it.
You just delivered some?
They just walked by.
How do they
Beautiful.
filtrate it?
What do you mean? How do they filtrate it? They
Is it
filtrate it
limestone
through
filtration?
Natural.
It's natural limestone filtration, and it's premium alkaline water. If you didn't know, if you have never heard of Pawnee water, by the way, if you don't know what Pawnee water is, or what Pawnee is, it's actually, I believe, figure this out for me, Paul. You got a computer in front of you.
Yeah.
I believe, type in Pawnee because I think it's actually water for another language. I got to figure out what language it is.
Hindi.
Yeah.
Right. So it's actually water in Hindi, but Pahhni.
Pawnee Technology.
Pawnee Technology, and yeah. What about that yesterday? We won't get into that, but Thom, we love Thom. Thom from time to time, he just has gold gems that he doesn't even know that he creates because he Googles Mudita yesterday, which is, for those that don't know, Mudita is a term that's used in Buddhist. What is it?
It's a Sanskrit term. Yeah, I think it's Buddhist.
Yeah, so Buddhist, it means enjoy the success of others. And my man Thom Googles it, and it's sure enough, there's a Google ad that's right there in front of him. That's Moodist Technologies. Some company decided to say Moodist. Tracy looks like he has some incredible internet right now, and Tracy Jones is coming on with Encore Technologies. That is our other sponsor. What do you know about Encore Technologies, Tracy?
I know that John Burns is the guy that runs the ship there at Encore, and he is Elon Musk of the Midwest. He is the smartest guy I know. Brilliant as far as handling employees, technology that Encore has off the charts. Love that company.
Tracy, where are you at right now?
I mean, I love deal. I'm in a place called sunny Southern California. Here's the problem, Trace. It's rained every friggin' day since I've been here. It's cold. Sent Casey a video where we actually had hail and a little bit of snow. I've never seen that on the beach in Southern California. California is a great place, boys, and I know you'll never get there. I mean, a big trip for you guys is going to Metamora or something like that. But it is not a great place if the weather is bad. And the weather has been bad, rainy, and very cold. So hopefully when I'm leaving Sunday, it'll kind of turn around. But it's supposed to rain again today.
Now, when you go to a beach like that and there's snow on the ground, and it's one of those beaches where clothing is optional, as you say,
Right.
is that a difficult situation, I would assume, to handle? What do you do in a spot like that? I assume you just pack it up and go home, or what?
Well, that beach is very secluded, so I like to sometimes just wear like a thong. And remember, boys, and I've talked about this, remember, potato in the front, not in the back, right? You don't want the so yeah, I really enjoy California when it's nice and sunny, but it's enjoy my you guys because I've been wanting to talk about this, and it's kind of breaking news, and I've got goosebumps.
Really?
Excited. Are you ready?
I'm hoping I'm
get
ready.
the
I'm also hoping that your internet's going to hold up so we can hear this whole entire story, because I am actually ready. Don't you? I mean, Elon Musk is right around there. Although they kicked him out of California, I think he's in Texas now. They could use some internet out there. It looks like.
Yeah, they could. But I'm actually getting a bobblehead.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
It's a big deal. I've always wanted to get a bobblehead. Florence Ewalls, the guy independent team, they're going to have Tracy Jones August 16th. At the game, you get a Tracy Jones bobblehead. This is a big deal for me. So I've always wanted to get a bobblehead. Now I have my first bobblehead. Instead of my picture in front of the ham and eggers, you can now, which is very cool. And might as well, I'm going to start. They give you extra bobbleheads, and I'm going to sell bobbleheads. So how many can I put you down for, Trace?
Depends on the cost. Did we have a cost associated with those yet, or no?
Yes, absolutely. It's a great deal.
Let's hear it.
$25 for one.
That
For
seems like a good
two,
deal.
$60. Great deal. You can't beat it. And also, Casey, listen, you don't have to pay for one, Casey, because that's what you're getting for your wedding gift. Paulie, how many can I put you down for?
What's a cost per three? 150?
Yeah, around there. Shipping and handling, if you figure all of it. And do you guys want me to sign the bobblehead?
Well,
Yes or no?
There's no doubt that I know where this is going. When it gets signed, where does that take us?
$5 more. So I think all in all, you just send me I'll send you guys a couple. We'll just round it up to $100, a C note. So yeah, but I am kind of excited. It's kind of cool because I've never had one. So I will definitely get you guys some bobbleheads. Very excited.
This is breaking news, and I hope this is dead serious, because one thing I have a sincere question about with these bobbleheads is, if you got a rendering of it yet? Do we know what it looks like? Is it Tracy on the beach? Is it Tracy playing for the Reds? Is it Tracy playing for the Giants? Is he playing for the Expos? Is he playing for the Tigers? Who is Tracy Jones actually being with this bobblehead? Is it all of them? Because if it's all of them, it should be $100 a bobblehead.
That's a great question, because I got to get the remnants today, kind of get the mold. It's shipped off to China, and it's 4 months in developing. I will tell you this, the hat will be on backwards. I'm going to have my Oakley sunglasses. I'm going to have my wristbands. The jersey will be dirty. The pants will have blood on it. I will be wearing my high top pony cleats that I used to wear. You guys, that was way before your time, but I used to wear those. And then I don't know my stance. Should I do like how I used to hit, or what do you guys think? Well, how would you like to see? I'm going to wear you all's shirt, so maybe a different. I don't know. I want to get the Expos in there. Of course, I got to get the Giants, the top. I played for 5 major league teams, so there's a lot going on there, a lot of decisions to be made.
Well, that's one of those decisions that as they say, you should sleep on it, because when you make big decisions in life, there's folks that they think that you shouldn't really rush to judgment. I'm not sure I'm in a place or a position right now to try to make that executive decision right on the spot of what it should be. We should give this some real well thought out decision-making time, and we'll be back better than ever, maybe tomorrow morning. We'll send you a text on what we think that should look like. But
please do. Please do.
And
guys, it was funny because I was trying, the guy who's going to do it for me needs a 360. So I really wanted to try to get my pony cleats that I wear, the high top pony cleats, because I think they're pretty cool. I mean, they're ugly, but that's what I wore. So I went down into my basement in my, I've got like cages in my condo that I haven't been to, and I haven't opened up this trunk in about 30 years. It's my memorabilia. And I was going through it and looking for my pony cleats. I found the pony cleats, but you know what was really neat? I know I joke around all the time, but I found a bunch of baseballs signed by Hall of Famers that I had played with.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, how cool is that? And I just kind of stumbled upon them, and I'm thinking, you know, I think of my career, and you get kind of upset some of the things that went south, but man, did I play with some really good players. Can I give you the names of the players that I play with? How many Hall of Famers do you think I played with, Trace?
Well, I am not the baseball reference savant that Reed Mouse is. I will pose the question to Reed. He can't hear. Tracy is asking, how many Hall of Fame players do you think that he played with? My initial guess when you asked me that was 5. I don't know why that came to my mind, but 5.
I think that's a good guess.
Played with 2 at least in Seattle between Randy Johnson and Ken Griffey Jr.
This guy's ridiculous.
Played with Pete Rose. He played with Alan Trammell. Lou Whitaker isn't in yet. Played with Jack Morris. He played with, I would say, somewhere close to 10. 10?
Nice, Reed.
All right.
Here we go. You ready? Here's the
Let's hear
names. This give you goosebumps. Now pay attention, Trace. You're not paying attention.
I'm trying.
Barry
Larkin.
Tony Perez. Tim Raines.
Goose
Gossage. Trammell.
Alan Trammell.
Jack Morris.
Sparky
Anderson. The best hands in baseball as far as infielder, Omar Vizquel.
Yes.
Best all-around hitter that I played, Edgar Martinez. The unit, who I used to go out here. I was his road buddy. We would go out to strip bars. Randy Johnson.
Photographer now.
Ken Griffey Jr. And here's some balls that I had that didn't get, I mean, they're not Hall of Famers, but if you think about it, Dave Parker, Concepcion. How about this one? Veda Pinson. He was my hitting coach. Pete Rose, he's not in the Hall of Fame. Lou Whitaker, Reed mentioned it. And that's a lot of players. That's like 16
Omar's
players.
Not in the Hall of Fame
that could have been.
Vizquel.
Who isn't?
Omar Vizquel isn't in the Hall of Fame.
Should be.
He isn't?
No.
Well, he'll be in the Hall of Fame. You sure that? Okay, so we're down to 10. There I go, exaggerating again. And I look at all the players there, and you know the best that I ever played with is not there. And you know who that was? And I played with a guy, Kevin Mitchell, MVP with the Giants. Cecil Fielder, we lost 100 games, MVP. The best player I ever played with? Who do you think?
Best player Tracy Jones ever played with that wasn't on, he said he did not list him.
Eric Davis. Did you play with
You
Eric
got
Davis?
it.
Eric Davis.
You got it.
Reed Mouse is like a damn. He's some kind of. He's on Baseball Reference too much. You know those guys that know too much about baseball. You're like, what are you doing all day with your time? But Eric Davis. You think Eric Davis the best player that you've ever played with?
As far as what I saw with Eric Davis, he was so talented. He was a guy kind of like Junior who could turn it on and turn it off. I saw Eric Davis in Philadelphia hit a home run to left, center, and right in a ball game it was cold in Philadelphia. It was windy in Philadelphia. And I was just sitting there watching him pick balls off the ground and launching them in the stands. And nobody really talks about this with Eric. He could steal second and steal third base. And you know what, Trace? There wasn't a damn thing that catcher could do about it. He was that good. And then also remember, I mean, I remember stuff about Eric Davis. I don't remember a lot of the other players. I remember when Eric Davis robbed Jack Clark in consecutive nights at Riverfront, when he reached over the fence and caught it. And I remember one catch, it was so far over the fence that the fence was like this. He reached over it, if you can believe that. That's the visual that I saw from left field. And I screamed like a little girl. I couldn't believe that he made that catch. But I think Eric, if he had stayed healthy, would be on that list of Hall of Famers. I thought he was that good.
When you're coming up through the minor leagues, Tracy, and you see guys obviously all over that are touted as prospects or touted as maybe the next guy that's going to be, that's happening currently right now in this Reds franchise, to where they're got a list of names of people that they think are going to be the next big time player within the Reds franchise. When you're an actual player in the organization, and these guys are starting to kind of get hand-plucked, if you will, whether it's from the fan base or whether it's maybe genuinely from the front office, where you're one of those guys, and maybe you weren't this guy, you were one of those, you were the Ellie De La Cruzes of the world, Tracy, back in the day. But my point is, do you think that from time to time can be unfair to some guys that are playing really good baseball, but for some reason they don't have the sheer, clear advantage from an athletic standpoint that allows them to be put on the same pedestal per se, but they might be just as good, if not better, actual ball player than some of these other guys? How many times do you feel like that happens at a minor league level when they're just not theoretically the top draft pick, but they're just a better player? They just happen to be drafted in the 15th round.
Oh, well, Trace, here's the deal with that. If you're not one of the top draft picks, you're not going to get the opportunity that first rounder is getting, right? Because they spend the money. If that player is a first rounder, he's 90% of the time, he's going to play in the big leagues. He doesn't have to hit 300. All he has to do is stay healthy. And I promise you this happens. If he just hits 250 or he wins some games as far as a pitcher and throws pretty hard and can spot his pitches, he'll play in the big leagues because they'll push that guy. Now, if you're a guy that just signed out of a camp, and that's happened. That happened to a guy by the name of Jeff Treadway, who I played with, signed out of a tryout camp, which is a very cool story. Yeah. But Treadway, and I played with him for 2 years, he had to be right there all the way. I mean, he was second in the league in hitting both years, and he didn't win the batting title. There was a guy by the name of Tracy Jones that won that batting title. He was always finishing second to me, and I used to bust his balls all the time on that. I said, Tread, one of these days you're going to win a batting title when I'm not here and I'm in the big leagues. But he was a good ball player.
Well, I have I don't know if you got into this with Thom yet on if you spoke with him with the pitch clock. I won't share my opinion on the pitch clock, so I don't, not that I would persuade you in any way, shape, or form. But your overall impressions of it, have you got a chance to see it at all? I know that it's been difficult to watch some of these spring training games, but have you seen it? Do you like it? Initial thoughts?
Yeah, Trace, I actually have a life. Now, if you're like Reed or the Ham and Eggers, who that's all they do is they sit there and friggin' watch, ball games and go to Pornhub, I actually do things where I'm actually out there having a good time. I will eventually watch a ball game and give you my breakdown. I see where Max Scherzer thought it was a good thing. He liked the pitch clock for both, for the pitcher, and then I saw where Aaron Judge said the pitch clock. So just kind of quickening the game. It's kind of like players running on and off the field. I mean, I got to really sit down and break it down because I remember I see things that you people don't see. Right? I mean, Reed can sit there and all you guys can sit there and look at, stupid, goofy stats, but I'll pick up stuff. So maybe the next time we talk, I'll be a little bit more prepared on the pitch clock.
Tracy, and I got to give credit where credit is due. You came on this show, one of the very first shows, and you said that you see things that most people don't. You brought up a player that has got off to a good start in their league. Aristides Aquino, a guy that you are high on. He is over playing in the Penal League. The other day, he did hit 2 home runs to start his season off. So I just wanted to give credit where credit is due. You seen that one from the very start.
Well, I didn't see it. The didn't really pan out, but he can hit that 88-mile-an-hour fastball. He has trouble with the little juice high and up. So yeah, I thought Aquino could play. But sometimes I can't get everything right.
That's
but
right.
At least, Trace, here's the difference with me and you people. I have the courage to go out on a limb and give you my opinion. You guys are always just standing back, and saying, I think Manny Machado's going to have a great year.
Oh,
Your internet's struggling. There we go. You're back. All right, last thought. We need to. I don't know if we need to get Elon a call. Maybe we'll get Burns out there. We'll send him to the south side of California to see if we can't get some internet out there. I don't know. I do like the backdrop, to be fair to you. I'm sure that maybe you can hear, maybe you can't, but I do like the backdrop you got going there. That's very nice. Do you know tomorrow?
Let me see.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you know?
I probably will give John Burns a call and maybe break down, or he'll walk me through what the issues are here, because we're not getting very good reception. I've come with a lot of stuff. I do 100% effort, and yet it seemed like a lot of things slipped through the cracks this morning. So, and here it is, Trace, and here's what I'm a little disappointed. I had to wake up early this morning. I had to wake up at like 8 o'clock to do the show. Do you know how tough it is to get out of bed when you're sleeping in silk pajamas?
I actually do not. No, I do not. Not silk pajamas. I do not. I'm assuming it's difficult.
It really is. It really is. In fact, I want to go put them on and get back into bed. I'm tired.
You should give that a shot. And I mean, the beautiful thing is out there in California, where you're located, you should be able to do whatever you wish. You take it easy if you'd like to take it easy. If you need to work, then you can work. It's kind of like come and go out there a little bit. We'll take it easy type place.
Well, I do have the life of Riley. I'm very fortunate, but I think it's supposed to rain here in about 3 hours, so I got to get out and walk my dog Tucker. Tucker made the trip to California, if you can believe that.
That's a big time trip for Tucker, especially with the types of arrangements that he has to abide by. When I'm sure getting through airport security is not the easiest thing for Tucker. So let's transition. I think I've asked Paul this twice. Tracy, do you know what tomorrow is?
Wednesday?
No. Tomorrow, Paul, let him know.
It's the first day of Women's History Month, Tracy.
And no better guy to have on the day before than you to really discuss this subject matter.
Wow, I didn't know that. I would have prepared. I knew about Black History Month being a 3% black, but this is the first day. So March is it the whole month for women?
It's the whole month, Tracy, the whole month.
Whoa. That seems a lot for women to have a whole month. I don't know, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to do chores now? Are we supposed to do the cooking and the cleaning? I'm not sure. I mean, how does that work? Well, you know what? I'll ask someone who's whipped. Casey, what do you got to do for your women this month?
I'm unfamiliar what you're supposed to do. Isn't this something new? I don't know.
I have no idea.
I mean,
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
It literally popped up on my phone, and it said, tomorrow, Women's History Month. And I said, I've never heard of this.
Never heard of women?
Well.
Tracy, obviously I don't get an opportunity to do this a whole lot with you, and I know that you're probably looking forward to getting yourself back into that bed with your silk pajamas. But I do have to ask the question while you're on here. When you're out there, how much work actually gets done? I mean, are you actually working out there, or is this just mostly just a leisure vacation?
I do a little work. I have clients in my financial business out in Southern California, so I meet with about 10 people that we go out, go over their financials. And that's one right there. I think I'll schedule lunch here. But yeah, I do meet with clients. But most of all, I just kind of relax. I mean, I'm going to be 62 coming up March 31st, the end of Women's Month. So yeah, I've kind of taken it easy. Very fortunate. But yes, I am meeting with some clients.
Fair enough. All right. So when you
I meet like this, by the way.
Yeah, I mean this is big time work. I will say when you get that FU money, as you have proclaimed from time to time, I just want you to remember your good pals here at Chatterbox, and you can just buy us out, and we then could probably lay around on the beaches of Southern California, enjoying our flexibility and our freedom within our silk pajamas. But until then, we'll continue to grind out here and try to make it to where when you get that money, this whole thing that we do around here a little more valuable. Is that a thought? You think you could buy
my goal in life, 100 and to have FU money. Those are my two goals, kind of like Rockefeller and Carnegie. You know, Rockefeller, the average life expectancy back in those times were like 37 years old. Do you know both those guys lived to be 98 and 97 years old? I think that's incredible. I really do. So that's kind of my goal. Hopefully I'll have as much money as Carnegie and Rockefeller, maybe. Who knows? Keep doing this show. I won't.
There's a lot of truth
to
that.
Hey, one more thing. I know I'm taking up a lot of time, and I'm sure a lot of people are very bored. The hits just keep coming for me. I'm a very lucky person. I know that. I'm very thankful. God has been very good to me. I've got a great wife. Got a family, friends, clients, very lucky. I just signed a 5-year deal.
Oh, yeah?
Jones and Brennaman on base. How about that? 5 years.
Five-year deal.
Signed it on Friday. We are good to go. The only change is it used to be Brennaman and Jones, but we flip-flopped it. Brennaman and Jones on baseball. Now it's Jones and Brennaman on baseball. So have Marty tomorrow, sure, because Marty with that. He didn't like that. But I think you got to, although Marty's great, I'm not saying he's not great, but let's face it. So it's Jones and Brennaman on baseball for 500 WLW. It's a big deal. 25 years, Trace, we've been together.
No, that's impressive, and I enjoy it. It's one of those things where, unfortunately, and maybe this is where at some point the rubber will meet the road with some of these things. I would like it to be available for what I would call this younger generation, Tracy. I don't really listen to the radio a whole lot anymore. I don't know if that's maybe a slight on me. Maybe I should watch it a little more. But if we could get that thing on the internet, to where it's on Twitter every day or something along those lines, maybe there's a way at some point Chatterbox could help out these folks that are old heads at these stations to help them realize that there's other
Wouldn't
people
that be great?
It'd be nice.
I think so. It'd be great. Marty is people talk about the relationship that I have with Marty. Marty's got mad at me one time, and that was when I was late to a show about 15 years ago. I was out drinking with the boys. I had just gone through a divorce. You know how that happens. Tracy, you're just married once?
Married one time, Tracy. That's what
well,
you
you'll
call.
Get that.
I'm a good general manager. I make good picks. I unfortunately sounds like some of you guys are more of the Bowden type, but that's here nor there.
No, see that's where you're wrong. You're going to be a lot happier when you find your second wife, right? And then I'm going to be really happy when I find my third. But I was late because I was out drinking, and guess where I was drinking at?
My guess is the BA. Yeah.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. The brass ass. I came in, and Marty didn't like that at all. And when you're with Marty, you got to come prepared, and you got to be on time. Trace, that's the only time I've ever been late. And every time we're scheduled for a show, if it's at 10 o'clock, I'll be there at 35. Every time, because Marty, you got to be ready to go. And he's an unbelievable talent. He really is. He is so quick. He hasn't slowed down at all.
Fair enough. I'll leave you with this. We got a text message from Thom late last night that he had obviously a personal matter that he had to attend to, and he wasn't going to be able to do the show. So as I got a text message, we said, what are we going to do? I said, well, the show must go on. We got to do this every single day. Tell the folks that we're going to continue to do it. You know why, Tracy? Because there was a smart man that told me one thing. And you know what he told me?
What did he tell you?
He said, success, for the most part, 90% of it at least, is just showing up. And that's what we did today. What do you think about that?
Don't try to take credit for that. How dare you? I came up with that, and I stole it from Woody Allen.
I would love to talk about the Woody Harrelson thing the other day, but we don't know if we have time for that. Maybe that'll be for the next show.
Yes, please do. Let's do that.
All right, Tracy, I'll let you get back enjoying your day. Thank you for coming on,
right.
even though we are the JV squad, perhaps, as they call us here at Chatterbox. But we like to think we do a decent job. So appreciate you coming on, Tracy.
Anytime, boys.
All right.
Anytime.
All right. Tracy Jones. What about him playing for all those guys, with all those guys? And you know it's wild, and I didn't want to get into this, is just how damn hard it is to play professionally in any sport. I look at like these youth sports at times. I look at the youth organizations. I see all of this crazy, I call it nonsense, but this craziness that exists at youth levels, whether it be 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old leagues. And it's just going all over the place to do all these crazy things. And I'm looking at somebody and I'm thinking to myself, there's so many parents that are so naive. And maybe ignorance is bliss. Maybe I shouldn't be the Debbie Downer and shouldn't be the guy that tries to say, hey, do you know the reality of this? But it's just like, it's so damn hard to make it to the major leagues that I often wonder if people really do understand how difficult it actually is. Tracy, from time to time, people will obviously make fun of the fact that, oh, yeah, whatever, he hit. He didn't even hit that bad in the big leagues, did he? You pull up his baseball reference real fast. But, they'll laugh at the idea that he played for 5 major league teams, et cetera, and kind of downplay his career a little bit. But, man, I'll tell you right now, if you even have a chance to get to AA or beyond anymore, you're an incredible player. And I don't know where I was going with that, other than saying I guess Tracy Jones is probably a better baseball player than many want to give him credit for.
According to Baseball Reference, he was slightly below average. OPS plus 100's the parameter for being average. He had a 97 OPS plus throughout his career. So just right there on the average.
Fellas, we got called in late. I'm not sure that we did a good job. I think we did an average job at best. But at the end of the day, we found a way to survive in advance, as Darren Horde said. That's what this is about.
We do have a cherry on top.
Beautiful. Let's fire that cherry up on top. Let's fire the cherry on top. Because this show is presented by, geez Louise, I'm ruining it at the end of the show, United Dairy Farmers. Big thanks to United Dairy Farmers for supporting this show. We are in the middle of trying to re-up that deal. So we'll work through that. But if you haven't already, please do me a favor. Like the video down here. We have 59 people watching. We have 26 likes. I know that sometimes you don't have the ability to like it, but right now, if you're listening, please just like the video. It might not seem like a lot to you. You might think that that's no big deal, but it helps the YouTube algorithm show our videos to more people. The more people that see this show let us go out and sell advertisement. If we sell advertisement, we can continue to do it, and we hope to continue to provide better and better resources to where at some point we can hire people that are better than me to do this stuff. So, without further ado, it's the United Dairy Farmers cherry on top.
These people this work. Kevin Durant, let's go. You keep joining super teams to win an NBA title. How about we work out together sometime so I can teach you how to carry your own team? Oh!
Well, there's two things I love about that clip. One is Giannis is just such a likable guy. I thought the joke was relatively pretty funny. It could have been delivered better, probably. But when you have a guy on his English as a second language, you could see his brain. Did you guys see? I'm going to have you run that clip back. Do you see his brain turning? It was in a pretzel trying to read that teleprompter for a minute. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from him, because if I was trying to do something in a second language and again I was on national television, I would probably look just as bad. But his brain was in a pretzel for about a minute. I want you to rewatch this. When they go to him, you could see the light bulbs go off like, oh, I got to try to read this. And there was humongous nerves.
You keep joining super teams to win an NBA title. How about we work out together sometime so I can teach you how to carry your own team? Oh!
It's like he got to the end and then realized what he said. Then he kind of had that little smirk. It was great.
Yeah. It took him a minute to realize the joke he told himself. Couple quick questions from Sir Boy, who's asking the most serious and important questions. One, is there a not too picky?
You want to just go in the vault right now? I mean, we've all been sitting here. We can go in the vault right now.
We can go into the vault.
Let's just go in the vault right now.
Matthew,
since we're all here.
Matthew McConaughey says, all right. But more importantly, any watch party happening. The watch party currently is on the goal line. We are right there. We're at like the 2-yard line. Sometimes when you get to the 2-yard line, you turn around and you hand the ball to Marshawn Lynch. He runs the ball in the end zone. Sometimes you let Russell Wilson try to throw a quick slant, and the bad things happen when you try to do stupid things. So we're right there at the 2-yard line. Our goal is to hand the ball off to Marshawn Lynch and run it in for a touchdown. We think that's what's going to happen. We have some other exciting news, hopefully, to share in the next few days. But we're working very hard on the watch party. And, yes, we want to do that. And we want to try to make a big deal out of it with Betfred. Because Betfred, hey, one thing about Betfred is that they have supported us, and we want to make them proud. So one thing that we would do that could possibly make them proud, and one thing that we could prove our worth, is to have a big watch party and all enjoy ourselves gambling and watching March Madness.
I think Betfred's mad at us.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, the not too picky graphic just keeps slamming parlays.
We're
Speaking of which, we've got this gear showed up, and the man who makes this shot, so we had the Floridian Fade yesterday. 5 teams were playing against Florida teams, and we put it together, and it came down to this shot right here. Casey, run the clip.
He's being pressured by Tillman.
This is P.J. Bird for the Southern Jaguars to win the Floridian Fade parlay. And because of this shot, P.J. Bird is going to be the first ever athlete inducted into the Not Too Picky Hall of Fame. So congratulations to P.J. Bird on hitting that shot.
That's big time for
He's been
PJ
a long time supporter of the Birds. But
really quickly, I want to run that back, and I want the audio on it. Because, Reed, you're not able to hear. That's fair to you. I won't get on you. But I heard some great play-by-play right there, and I want to hear it again. Run that clip back. I want to actually hear this whole thing with the announcer.
And I got to show you something after you run this clip back the first time.
Go ahead.
He's being pressured by Tillman. 7 seconds left in the clock. And he's going to pull up at the top of the key and knock down the shot with 2.5 seconds left. Bam,
All right.
Bird.
So run it back. So there's this. Run this clip back one more time. There's this kid from the baseline after the shot is made, comes flying through, flailing his arms. That was me.
down the sideline. Watch from the base, the closest sideline to us from the baseline. Watch him. Here he comes.
Airplane. That was me running through 800 Park Avenue yesterday, flailing out for the Southern Jaguars. Love it.
The Floridian Fade, it came through. Good for you, Raid. So we've had 3. We've had the rebound rundown.
Yep.
That hit last week. The Bluegrass Parlay hit on Saturday, and now the Floridian Fade.
We'll have it out later. We don't know what the theme is. We just we fly by the seat.
Tomorrow, you know what we do tomorrow? The Women's Hoops Parlay for Women's History Month. We pick a few women's games.
I love it. I love it.
Sold.
Seems like a good deal to me.
Yeah.
I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Nothing.
Nothing.
Isn't it wild when you just randomly pick games you have no idea about? They just start hitting left.
Well,
and right.
that was me on Saturday night with the 871 I had left in my account. I just picked every 10 p.m. game. I said, screw it. I was watching Netflix. Picked every 10. Didn't look at a thing. Just randomly clicked every game. 7 legs. Flipped on Outer Banks. First episode got done. I thought, might as well check, see where we are.
How's it going?
Might as well check and see where we are. We were at halftime of all the games. They were all looking good. Got through 6 legs. San Diego State had to win by 2 and not 3. Could have turned 871 into almost $1,000.
And you'd be back.
Oh, I would have been back, baby.
Fully back.
I would have been back. I put that parlay together in maybe 25 seconds. Just clicked everything.
I did the exact same thing last night with the 3 big games from the major conferences. I did the total and I did a side. And out of the 6 possible the 6 plays I went 5 for 6. Frickin' Oklahoma State.
Sad.
All right, anyone got a play for tonight?
Villanova -1.5.
I like that.
I would like
I
to
like it too, man.
I would like to know if Kaderi Richmond's playing or not for Seton Hall, because that makes a massive difference. It was a close game when they played the first time in Philadelphia when he was playing. If he's not playing, I mean, that's a completely different Seton Hall team, and the line kind of makes it feel like he is playing.
Mm-hmm.
If it ends up that he's not playing and you want to get in on that game, get in on it now, because, I mean, that's just a completely different Seton Hall team without him.
I like Tennessee to get back on the horse. I know I called them frauds yesterday. I like them to get back on the horse. They play the Hogs tonight. 6.5-point favorites at home. I like Tennessee in that. I know they're a slow-moving team, but 7 points is a lot for them, but I think they got it. Give them the Vols.
I know Reed doesn't want to talk about this, but
No. You're going to be a sucker and take Iowa? You're going to be a sucker and take Iowa?
The Iowa Hawkeyes look like a pretty good play tonight.
Sucker.
Think that's a bad bet, do you? Getting 5.5 points. I don't even know if Iowa really needs the points, if we're being frank. They're playing at home. Is it in Bloomington? Okay. I didn't know that. I thought it was in Iowa. Is it in Bloomington?
It's in Bloomington. Assembly.
Got another one for you. This one I actually like more. You ready for it?
Let's lay it my way, Big Pimpin'.
Virginia tonight. They're going to bounce back.
We like the defensive teams.
They're a team. They're
the frauded teams.
I just said I liked Iowa. That's not a defensive team. I like Virginia. I like Virginia a lot.
Give me NC State. They're on a bounce back too. NC State 6.5 on the road against Duke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Virginia a lot.
All right.
I need to get back on the horse. I've been doing some matters around the house, like hanging backsplashes and doing some things. And if you looked at my Picket or whatever, you probably see I've taken like 5, 6, 7 days off until last night. Got back on the horse real late. Turned on the tube. I seen 3 minutes and 45 seconds left. And you know who was on there? Old Huggy Bear. Down by 4, plus 300. Took a stab at it. Hit. Quick and easy money, as they say.
Nice.
So I do have this, which I will say. I'll put this out to the office. The good people, they gave me a $100 free bet. Maybe they knew I've been retired, knew I haven't bet in a long time. Got $100 free, a coupon, $100 free bet. I hit this. Maybe we find 2-3 legs. We hit this.
Why not build it back?
Let's turn that 100 into 200 on Virginia. And then
he'd only get 90. You'd only get 90.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing.
What do you mean you'd only get 90?
Because it's a free bet. So you only get the wins.
Yeah.
So if you bet $100, you get 90.
Yeah, I don't get the extra cash. So that's what I'm saying. You take.
But that's not nothing.
No, it's not nothing. It's not nothing.
It's a lot.
It's not nothing.
All right, let's just pick a state and fade the crap out of it. Like we did last night. We're undefeated, never lost. I got a story about Casey, too, while we're talking about bets. Casey yesterday, I'm putting the graphic together. I said, Casey, you got any picks for me? He said, yeah.
Uh-oh.
I love the Celtics. And I said, you love it? He said, I love them so much. I think it's, without a doubt, going to hit so badly that I might even parlay it with another team. And I said, what? You're so confident in a bet that you want to make it less likely to hit? And he said, yeah. And I said, all right, I'll bet it. And I'll make you a deal, Casey. If this doesn't hit, then at one point in our friendship, never going to tell you when, I get to smack you one time. You never know when it's going to come. It could come right. I could run over there right now and do it. I could do it 2 years from now.
Do it at the wedding.
At the wedding would be a good spot. It'd be a good spot. But if it does hit, I'd take you out to a nice dinner. And it didn't come close. So I officially OKC.
One of the worst officiated games I've ever seen.
Oh, no.
Tatum gets ejected. A second technical. I mean, it was just bad. It was bad.
For those that are into the Cincinnati Reds, I know Kirby's in the chat right now, and we're going to do a show tomorrow with C. Trent Rosecrans right around 9:30. But if you haven't yet, please download 2 podcasts that are legit. And I'm not just saying this because they're ours, but they're very good. I listen to podcasts. I started listening to ours, and I compare them to others. Rebound Rundown every day, Paul. You do a great job. I'm not just saying that because you're in the building. But Nick Kirby's done an excellent job with the Chatterbox Reds, and that thing's just shot straight up the charts. So kudos to him and Chatterbox, I guess, as a whole for us promoting all of our other types of content out there. And thank you for watching this show. And if you want to make some money tonight, I'm telling you right now, Virginia is a very, very good opportunity to do that. But until then, we will, at Box Lunch, probably not be back tomorrow because we have some things that we need to attend to around the office that are upgrades. Mm-hmm. However, if Thom is not able to do his show tomorrow, we will probably jump back on the horse in the saddle, or whatever term you'd like to use, and we'll be back here better than ever tomorrow, probably a little more prepared. Because I will be frank with you, when I say I have been pretty unprepared for things in my life, I don't know if you need to look farther than today as maybe me being the most underprepared for something in my entire life. So I hope we did you proud to a certain extent. And if you don't think we did you proud, I understand. Join the Discord and bet Virginia tonight, and maybe that'll make up for it. But until then, thank you for watching. This has been Off the Bench, not with Thom Brennaman. Take care, everybody.